Calling to order the regular meeting of the Lancaster Select Board for Monday, October 17, 2022, 6 p.m. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast through our good friends at Sterling-Lancaster Community Television. First, I'd like to do a roll call. All those present. Jason?
Here.
Alex?
Present.
Steve is here as well. There we go. We're all here, ready to rock and roll. All right. The first item on the agenda is approval of meeting minutes for the Select Board's meeting of October the 3rd.
I would offer a motion to approve the minutes of October 3rd, 2020.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Jason?
Aye.
Alex?
Aye.
Steve? Aye. 3-0-0. Huzzah. We are now 3 minutes ahead of schedule. This will be the last time we'll be ahead of schedule tonight, but worth celebrating. Next item is scheduled for a scheduled appearance and public hearings. We are 3 minutes ahead of schedule, but we are here to hear the PJ Keating peer review conclusion. Are all? One more time?
Kevin?
Oh, sure. Since we are 3 minutes ahead, and in case folks are being very specific on their agenda and focusing on time, we will pause that for a moment and actually start that at 6:05. But we would like to, I'm going to turn it over to the town administrator, who's going to introduce us to Kevin Matrano.
So I wanted to introduce Kevin Matrano. He is going to be our new recreation coordinator. He is beginning next Monday. And didn't know, Kevin, if you just wanted to unmute yourself and virtually introduce yourself to everyone?
Sure. Excuse me. Thanks, Kate. My name's Kevin. I will be starting next Monday, like Kate said. I live in Littleton. I am the chair of the Parks and Recs Commission in Littleton. And I've done that, served in that commission for about 5 to 7 years. I kind of forget how long it's been. I have a ton of experience with kids and recreation. I've been a teacher. I've run a nonprofit. I've helped out Littleton Parks and Rec. I've worked in different Parks and Recs organizations, from big cities like Brookline to small towns like Harvard. So I'm really excited to work with Kate and Kelly and, see what we can do for the residents of Lancaster.
Terrific.
And Kelly, is Kelly's iPad you, Kelly?
Video from you.
Is it?
There we go. Thank you, Jason.
Sorry. Okay, here.
So I'm guessing that's not Kelly.
That might not be Kelly. That's
Okay.
Sorry about
Thank
that.
you, other
Okay.
Kelly.
Recording in progress.
All right. So Kevin, you.
Missed some really interesting stuff.
Sorry.
That's quite all right.
So Kevin is starting Monday, and his office will be in the community center, the office right outside of the gymnasium. So
Yep.
people can stop by and talk with him.
Well, Kevin, welcome aboard.
Thank you. I look forward to meeting everybody in person. My son has hockey practice tonight, or I would have been at the meeting tonight. But I'll definitely make arrangements in the future to attend meetings as necessary.
Sounds good. Welcome to the show that never ends.
You'll have a lot of fun. It's a great committee, great group.
Thanks, Kevin. And
Absolutely. Thank you.
that took us right to 6:05 p.m. So now we are back on schedule. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Are all the parties for the PJ Keating peer review conclusion here or there? Here. Fantastic. Do you want to, if you're coming forward to present, who's going to present?
Sure.
Okay.
Do you want
You have to go to the
Oh, okay.
podium.
Yeah.
So I guess the question, what order do you want to take this in? Do you want to review first, or do you want the key folks to speak first?
I think that we're here for the purpose of the peer review.
Well, so just to summarize, it's been a few months.
Yeah.
There was a secondary peer review letter that they all had a chance to give to the board, which I provided to the board, and then there was also Keating's response to that. Those are also in the packet. So I'm not sure if you want them to go back over all of that or if there are certain questions, so.
Well, I yield to my colleagues to see if they have specific questions. Otherwise, I would just love to get sort of an overview of where we are at this point. Do you have specific questions at this point, or do you want to hear from the parties first?
No specific question.
I think it might be helpful just to put things in context. You gave a great recap, Kate. This was, is it fair, can I give, would you like a brief overview?
I was
My
here
expectations?
for the meeting,
Well,
and
no,
I
no,
just
no,
got the
I
brief, and I've read the
understand.
material, so I don't feel like I need a brief overview.
Okay.
If you would like to give one.
Well, mine is next steps, but we can listen to this and talk about that.
The question is just, do we have any questions before we hear from them, or do we want to hear from them?
Why not?
There we go.
Yield
Fantastic.
to you.
The podium is yours. Just state your name, and you don't live in Lancaster, but state your name and,
Sure, for the record.
Yes,
my
please.
name is Bob Hartz, I'm a principal with Comprehensive Environmental. So, as Kate mentioned, there was an initial peer review letter, and then we met after that here before the select board. And I think during that meeting, there were still quite a few outstanding issues, so our charge was to go back and then meet sort of offline with the folks from Keating and try to get that list down to be as short as possible and resolve as many issues as possible, and I think that's what's happened. We did have a meeting with representatives from Keating and their consultants on July 21st, and it was very productive. We were able to essentially resolve, so there were really, I think, two categories of things we were getting into last time. There were sort of a garden variety of administrative or procedural things that were related to recommendations for special conditions, and then there was a larger category of things that were related to essentially data gaps with regard to potential for contaminants to move towards wells and so on. That second category was essentially resolved by getting additional information from Keating. So that was very helpful to sort of have that in hand, have the data, be able to review it, and do that before we sat down and met with the Keating folks. So that made that discussion a whole lot easier because most of the technical issues were simply resolved. So if you'd like, I can kind of go down what our recommendations are, if you want to go into that level of detail or not. I guess that's up to you.
yeah, I think that'd be helpful.
Okay? So what I'm going to go through here is, again, two categories, sort of operational, procedural items, wording recommendations, just sort of tightening up some of the special conditions that we're recommending in your permit, and then a summary of some of those issues related to surface and groundwater and the monitoring that we're recommending as a result of that. So the first of the recommendations is with regard to special condition number 2. And this primarily gets into, providing a little more detail. Our recommendations are recommending more detail on some of the soil and planting specifications. What we've recommended is actually more or less the same than when we met last on this. A couple of minor tweaks based on our meeting with the Keating folks. And so essentially we're talking about, the types of details like having 75% coverage in areas for vegetation, minimum organic content of 4 to 6% organic for the soils that will be put down where needed. I think the main evolution in this condition 2 is that the areas that will require soils and planting would be based on a site inspection after the quarry had been closed and reclamation areas would be determined. Everyone could kind of walk and make some common sense decision on where it was needed. If an area is densely vegetated, the assumption is that you wouldn't want to rip that up and replant. So
And the way it was previously written suggested you had one standard across the board.
That's right, yeah. The wording said shall be planted. There was a lot of shalls in there, so now this gives some flexibility to how that process would move forward in a way that makes good common sense. Next is condition 5. So this gets to the details of dust control. So the issue last time was more or less administrative. The condition was referencing a plan which didn't exist. So in the time that's since passed now, the folks at Keating provided a document that can be referenced in the condition. It kind of lays out where dust control is done, how it's done. So that's more or less been resolved. Skipping forward to condition 25. So this has to do with essentially the hydrologic study and the data that's collected as a result of that. So this is where we get into some of the more the bigger picture questions regarding our understanding of how groundwater may flow in various directions from the quarry. So to summarize, we received a variety of new information. We're able to take a good look at that. And based on review of that new data, we concur with North American Reserve's assessment that the existing bedrock formations around the quarry are relatively tight and that any natural fractures are limited to shallow bedrock. So the conclusion here that we concur with is that the existing bedrock in this area is competent and has limited hydraulic connectivity. And what that means in layman's terms is that it essentially is very limited ability to transfer constituents to down gradient wells. So that discussion, which was sort of an open-ended discussion before we looked at the new information, we feel like has been adequately resolved. So our recommendations as a result of that, there are a few. So there's a bit of a gap that we identified in the monitoring of groundwater flows. So to be protective in a conservative way of private wells, what we're recommending is that the existing old monitoring well 4 location, that a bedrock well be established there. That essentially closes a gap between MW1 and, I'm forgetting the numbering here, the existing MW1 and the existing MW2. So by reestablishing that MW4 location, that's essentially closing the gap and answering any kind of questions that may be open still with regard to flows to the east and south in that direction. So before getting the additional data that we reviewed, we had discussed potentially a larger array of new wells, but based on a review of the data, we don't feel like any additional wells other than reestablishing the old MW4 are warranted. So with regard to monitoring, in addition to reestablishing that well, we're recommending that bedrock monitoring be conducted at MW1 and MW4. And I'll get into the details on that when we discuss monitoring for both surface and groundwater. The second part of this condition has to do with simply the in situ transducers that have been newly installed in April. So we've got essentially a list of maintenance and calibration recommendations that more or less just follow the manufacturer's recommendations. And those, I don't think you probably need me to read those. Those are essentially just straight out of the manufacturer's manual for this equipment. Skipping down to condition 30, this gets to the question of how deep the bedrock well should be. So the current condition states that open excavation shall be no deeper than 20 feet above the elevation of the deepest groundwater monitoring well. So we, upon review of the new data, we agree with that and just recommend that the new monitoring wells be, the new one that's established at MW4 adhere to that depth requirement. So now we're getting into a general category of other recommendations that go beyond the numbering of the special conditions. So with regard to water quality monitoring, 2 categories, surface and bedrock monitoring. So for surface stormwater monitoring, we're recommending monitoring for turbidity prior to pumping from the quarry settling basin, and then additional monitoring for nitrates and for total metals quarterly for the first year, with future monitoring to be based on that first year results. Bedrock monitoring, we're recommending monitoring for nitrate, iron and manganese, perchlorate, and pH, and those are recommended for bedrock wells MW1 and M4. We're recommending that 1 round of samples be taken to determine if additional monitoring is warranted. With regard to noise monitoring, as we discussed in the last meeting, we're not really able to make much of a statement about that with regard to noise being an issue just from a single site visit. And our understanding was that the select board might hold a different meeting for that to discuss that in greater detail. And then the final issue was with regard to potential vernal pools. It had been previously noted that there are 2 potential vernal pools, the I-series and the J-series on the site. And what we're recommending is that the vernal pools should be inspected during the breeding season, which is in the early spring, around the 1st of April, last week of March, in that ballpark. And that if the vernal pool biological criteria is met, that information should be submitted for certification with the state. So all of those things that I just discussed, those were previously discussed in our meeting with Keating, and essentially reached agreement on all of them. So.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
I do have questions, but I thought that we might hear from
I'm just,
Keating as well, too.
I'm just being, we will hear from Keating as well. I'm just asking if you had any questions at this point.
I
If
do,
you'd like to
I
hold
do,
them,
but
you
I
can.
would, yeah, I'll reserve mine for now.
Would you like to hold yours?
So, my question to you would be, is the outcome of the meeting, was there any action items that you and Katie did not agree upon?
No, I think there were general agreement on all of them. I think that I'll let the folks from Keating sort of speak to that. I mean, there were some that they maybe agreed to in the interest of keeping things moving forward. Or we may have agreed to disagree on some of the technical merits or you know, as to whether vernal pools needed to be or should be certified. But I think in the interest of kind of coming to terms and closing this out, all the items were more or less just agreed to.
Yeah, to be clear, I'm definitely asking for your perspective, because I'm going to ask them the same thing. So you believe it was a positive meeting, you believe you, for the most part, have come to an agreement on the approach forward, and for the most part, you believe that what's going to be presented is in the best interest of Lancaster and is satisfactory for moving
Yes.
forward?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, like I said before, just getting the ability to review that additional data resolved the biggest issues that were looming. There were quite a few things in our initial peer review that, you know, we had kind of recommended as potentially we should look at these things because of the lack of information, and by getting that new information, it just put those questions to rest. So it made the rest of it a whole lot easier.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your perseverance and commitment here. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.
Okay?
We may call you back up for questions if failed. Thanks. Keating? Come on down.
Thank you very much. So my name is Doug Vigneault, and I'm the Environmental Compliance Manager for PJ Keating. And we did meet with Bob and his colleague, and TRC was there as well, our consultant. And, you know, there was some back and forth that occurred. And, you know, I think that, you know, our general feeling is that some of the things that are being asked for, I think, truthfully, a little over the top, some of the monitoring and whatnot, but we're amenable to doing it just to put things to rest. We have plenty of experience with this type of monitoring, with the parameters that are being asked to be studied, and you know, our experience with total metals and things of that nature is such that, you know, aside from the cost of the analyses and the collection and things of that nature, we're quite confident that if it gives the town an added layer of you know,
Comfort.
satisfactory comfort, then, you know, we're willing to do that, and we will do that. So,
Appreciate it.
but I can't say that we're complete.
You're not going to be dancing down the
Complete
street while you do
agreement
it,
with
but you'll do
that,
it.
but that's fine. So it really is just to, you know, we don't mind showing some baseline monitoring that shows that some of these asks, we're confident that will end up being, you know, non-detects or well below any effluent limitations, so to speak. So that's all well and good. Like I said, we did have a good conversation. Certainly CEI pushed back on some things that we disagreed with, and we agreed to things that, so that's all well and good. So we don't have a problem with the recommendations here. And we did not respond in writing to the board. We received a draft. Bob did send us a draft back in August of 8th, but we've never seen the actual final document. until I asked Ms. Hodges to send it to us. So we got it a couple of weeks ago, but nothing really different. Nothing came out of the blue from that. So, you know, that's all fine with us. I do want to note that both DEP and EPA have been out to the site. I have a little sticky note just so I can tell you specifically that on September 9th, we had a visit from 3 representatives of DEP, Michelle Damari, Maria Lanuzzi, I'm sorry, I'm messing up her name, and I am, and Gary Delmain as well. Those 3, actually, Michelle works in waste, so she came around and looked at all where we store hazardous waste, where we keep our oils, well, so on and so forth. Maria is on the air side of things, so she was particularly interested in the operations of the asphalt plant. And Gary Delmain is in the wetland section, so we looked at all those areas as well. So we did, you know, we spent about 4.5 hours going around and looking at various things. And my understanding at the end of that meeting was that they will put their notes into a file. They don't expect to be sending us any comments that we need to fix anything or things that are out of, you know, we're not going to get any requirements in the form of, you know, you have to go out and fix this, that, and the other thing. So that's really good. And then on October 5th, we had a visit from the EPA, George Papadopoulos, who is an environmental engineer, and although he doesn't head up the NPDES program, he's pretty high up there, as well as his colleague Sharon DeMeo. So they were mostly looking at NPDES related things, the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, where we sample, what we sample for, and whatnot, because it had been brought up that perhaps we should have a higher level of permit requirement. That's not the case, and they're not recommending that to be the case either. And another DEP employee was at that meeting, Kathy Conaris, and she heads up the NPDES program for DEP out of Boston. So, you know, again, all in all, went well. I asked them if they were going to be issuing a findings or letter, and again, they said, no, this will go into the file. That we came out and we inspected on such and such a day, and that's essentially the end of it. So, you know, you technically get letters back when something's wrong, but when something's okay, they don't pat you on the back and say everything's great. It just goes into the file. So we just wanted the board to know that those federal and state regulatory persons were on site, did their reviews, and I think that you know, everything came out pretty good. So that's all I have to add, and you know, we'll go with the selectmen's recommendations at the end of the day based on what we see before us now, and we'll start the sampling up. As far as the additional wells, we are actually putting in, so not to get into the nitty-gritty, but monitoring well 4 was put up a little bit further up than on the exact east side of it, of the quarry, and then the reason for that was we couldn't put in a shallow bedrock well, and we put in clusters there. So it was decided that we'd move the well up a little bit more so all the cluster wells could all go in. So this winter, we'll be installing 4 new wells, 3 at the existing locations of the others, the clusters, and those have to be drilled to a minimum of 20 feet below the lowest future level of the quarry, and that's what we'll do. So that's always been in the conditions that you'll have a well lower than the bottom of the quarry, but since we do plan to go lower, then that's why we'll be installing these wells now. at a depth that will represent our full build, you know, down the road, so that we don't have to put in new wells again sometime down the road. As far as the monitoring well 4, as Bob alluded to, that's going to be moved down a little bit more to the east, and that's only calling for the same 20 feet below the bottom of the quarry, and then we'll also put in a mid-range well there as well. So we'll actually be installing 5 new wells, 3 of which will be in the same areas, and 1 will be slightly changed to intercept that eastern side of the quarry that runs along Four Pond Road. So that's our plans, and you know, hopefully that'll satisfy the board for the purposes of this discussion. I'm sure you have questions, and we're welcome to address them as best we can.
I appreciate it. So what I'll ask is, my colleagues, if you have questions, ask them all at once to the extent you can, and try to ask all your Keating questions so that Doug can answer them, and Bob, so that they're not playing whack-a-mole, jumping up and down. So, Felix, would you like to go first?
Well, Jason may cover some of mine. As you can imagine, it's a deep subject. And I do have some questions, yes.
Literally.
Yes.
Literally. So,
Yes.
would you like to go first?
So, well, I suspect Jason will be more succinct. So would you like to?
Jason, would you like to go first?
So based on the outcome of the meeting, in your opinion, was there anything that you disagreed with, was not comfortable moving forward with CEI as far as their recommendations?
No, because we did put some parameters around, you know, this isn't a 10-year monitoring program. This is to get some baseline data to see where that goes. Now, if there are aberrations in the data, then, you know, they're above limits or they seem to be high in one way or another, then I think we're, you know, amenable to coming back and saying, oh, we got a hit on this one, you know, so maybe we need to look at this again. So that's common, you know. I don't, you know, think that we should need to do it for 4 quarters. I would say 2 quarters out of the year would be sufficient, you know, 1 in a 6-month period and 1 in a double. But again, I don't want to profess in front of the board that we need to rewrite this to reflect those things, but just giving you my honest opinion that, you know, things aren't going to change much in a 3-month process of the results that you get. The quarry is very tight, and we just haven't had any problems with any of these parameters. Not that, you know, we've gone out and sampled them, but I will add that they're extremely more onerous or more of a requirement than our federal NPDES permit would require. And, you know, the town has the right to ask for that if you so wish. But I just want you to be aware that, you know, it's pretty well above and beyond your typical requirements. But again, we're not here to, you know, argue that fact, really.
Yeah, I think you already covered this, but last question, just to recap, and it's definitely a softball. So from your position, it's your opinion that you're going above and beyond what you believe is reasonably necessary in the best interest of the town and moving forward?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Ms. Turner?
So my first question, I guess, would be to you, Chairman Kerrigan and Kate. Since we have a public hearing scheduled at 6:30, and it's 6:30 now, do we need to open that and just adjourn it to finish this up? To be on schedule, or?
It depends on how long your request is.
She asked if we needed to do that, and I said, it depends on you.
Well,
They usually give you a
few minutes grace.
either way, but if you
Yeah.
think that it's gonna be
I think I was just taught very
Longer.
strictly,
Sure,
but it's
sure,
okay.
yeah,
But I can go either way, it does not matter to me.
no, so
I-
you can
Let's-
definitely do that.
Yeah. And we see Kara Sanford's hand up in the air. So why don't we see how quickly Doug and Bob can address your questions, and then if we can get all this done in the next 10, then we don't have to open and adjourn, or recess,
Okay.
or next 9.
So, first, I would like to thank CEI and Keating for meeting and hammering this out. I think it was, I think the proof positive is that you both feel that you gave a little bit, and I think it's a much better product than when we had our last hearing that was, I won't say contentious, but charged with a lot of citizens and so on. I think this is a much better permit, and I could speak to the specifics, but I'm on a clock. So it's a much better permit for the town. Our job, and Doug, I know you spoke to the federal minimum requirements, which is true, and I think we certainly need to do that as leaders for the town. We need to make sure that, and oftentimes state and local regulations are stricter. Many regulations in Massachusetts are stricter than the federal ones. And Lancaster, we even have our local bylaw, wetlands bylaw, and that's one of the things I like about this is it mirrors, a lot of these elements mirror our local bylaw. So that integrity is great. So I think this was a really good project, and I won't go into to the depths. I do have 2 technical questions. You're installing new wells, and I know that as far as, you know, the frequency, I think the extra data points of doing things 4 times a year might help you, because, for example, when the transducers were down for so long before, it's nice to, good reporting is going to support your claims and your story, so if something happens, you know, it's not, in a different board, say, you know, you have that data. At the time that we met last, you weren't sure how much farther down you were going to go, but it sounds like now that you're putting in the wells, you do have an idea of how much deeper you want to mine. Is that correct?
Yes, we did. I'll refer to Rob, who's the VP of Aggregates. I don't know the exact
We have
number off the top of my head.
Do you want me to stand up or?
Or just speak very loudly.
Yeah, I'll speak loudly. Rob Robinson, VP of Aggregates for PJ Keating. We have a depth that we're going down to on a mine plan, which I don't have in front of me at the moment, and I think I don't want to give a number until I'm 100%.
Yeah, then please don't.
It's 20 feet, like Doug said, we're going 20 feet deeper than the deepest part of the quarry.
Right, which is in the conditions that we, yep.
It's just, I see that as one of the conditions, which is good. And then you spoke that you're putting in the wells so you don't have to do it again. So I figured, well, you've got a point to shoot for. So when you, not now, because you don't have
But
it
I can
with
get
you.
that information.
Yeah.
I apologize. I should have.
No, it's quite all right.
No pressure. It's just when you get that, it would be helpful to
We have
have.
it, and it's on a plan. It's a mine plan that we work to, and it's the maximum point that we can get to.
Right.
And so the well will go deeper
20
than
feet
that.
lower than that.
Okay. And the visits from DEP and EPA, I think, are good too, because they will ratify if what we're doing is protective or not, because they are usually not too shy to say something, but also balance business well. I will say that this process is finally done, but it's taken up a lot. This is to my board members. It's taken up a lot of time. I know more about this kind of stuff than the typical selectman. But I'm not sure that selectmen should have to do this, and I would suggest, just for thought, that we consider what many towns do and have an earth removal committee.
Which I believe
And we have talked about
Yeah.
that in the past
I
many,
think we
many
had one and
times.
it disbanded, didn't we?
No, well, we had people who were rewriting the bylaws, and then Peter.
I totally understand, but in the interest of time, we
I
should
know,
definitely discuss that, not when we're in the
Well,
middle of
but
this.
it's part of this, because the other thing that we had suggested when we did this was that we had talked about having maybe multiple meetings to discuss things. I don't know, I don't think based on what's here, there's sort of some good agreement that we need multiple meetings, but I think based on our claims to residents, that we need to have a meeting to hopefully seek any feedback. I doubt there'll be much, but we need to do that.
Do you have any further questions for Doug or for Bob?
I do not personally, no. I see other questions.
Can I just ask a procedural question? So when we came in a while back and we were looking for our full year, full 2-year permit, then it came to this point. We'll have a meeting in October, okay, so here we are. And if it's my recollection that if we were all in agreement with the new conditions of this, they would be incorporated into the new permit issuance, and that would be good until March of 2024.
That's my understanding.
That's correct, but pending the board's thought process, you would need to fill out the new earth removal application, and we would attach that, and it's just a paperwork formality, but we don't have it for you all. So we would do it with the dates. I can have Kathy from my office send you it. It's a fillable form. I can put it on the agenda for the 7th, which is their next meeting in November.
But it wouldn't, if this board agrees, and
It-
I hope it will, it would not require another hearing. We would
That's
just
correct.
approve
They would
based
just
on
approve the permit.
conversation that we've been having.
That'd be great, yeah, and so, you know, it really helps out. I mean, we don't want to elongate it too far out, but, you know, if there's ever any problems, just please call us in, you know, during the duration to March 24th of that.
We're not a shy board, so.
Yeah, we'll be happy to come in, obviously. It's our obligation to do so. But it really, you know, having a little bit of an elongated permit process or permit application time, it kind of gives us a little bit better business, you know.
Yeah, sure.
We-
And so if you're able to fill that out and we can get it on the agenda, we'll approve it. You don't have to come in, no one will be a hearing.
I'll have them email.
This will be considered done.
Thank you.
It's just, and it
my
just
colleagues
requires
agree.
your signature, that's all.
Okay,
So-
thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
A comment, so we did, and we want to give, typically we have up to 2 years, typically that is our goal, to give 2 years. As you know, there were so many questions with the first one and concerns that this was to bridge your, as you know, to make sure, bridge your season, to make sure you could still operate this year.
Yes, thank you.
Which you did. I do think it's critical because we promised to the residents that we would have a series of meetings or a meeting, and I'm hoping that we have that meeting, whether it be something like that, to give people the opportunity. I don't expect a lot
Give
of
people the
concerns.
opportunity to do what?
To speak to things like they had concerns, that they haven't seen this.
We're
Well, no,
coming here for-
I understand that, but, I mean, we
Yeah.
said, this is not, no, this isn't a public
No,
hearing,
we
it's just
yeah.
the conclusion. And my understanding is that we were going to have this review and then offer people the opportunity to discuss noise or whatever else.
Right, so we are going to let, and Kara has been in communication with the
Yep.
office for a few days preparing, and she was, had already submitted stuff to comment, so we are going to let the folks talk, and this will not be the end, but I think you're excused. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Kara, just in the interest of time, since we have these hearings, I know you've got prepared stuff and you're very well researched on this, so if we can just get a couple of minutes and then we can move on to Ann and then we're all set. Thanks, Kara.
My comments like less than 2 minutes, I think. Kara Sanford, 350 Bull Hill Road, and I'm sorry to leave right after this for forest practice. I advocated with Mass DEP and the EPA earlier this year for site inspections of the Lunenburg-Lancaster complex around the topic area of the pond and the associated wetlands, and around the topic of the general versus individual NPDES permit. I was also interested in the status of the 2018 enforcement action compliance. Site inspections happened in September and are happening this month. Individual citizens interested in regional and local conservation can contact their local environmental regulatory agencies. Environmental agencies rely on local perspective and appreciate the citizens, especially if they put the homework into learning the regulations. On CEI, I believe they are a better choice as monitor for their proactive and rigorous approach and for their deep knowledge of wetlands. I do not think that Tyne Bond's monitoring is as proactive and as tough as CEI's would be. Thank you, and thank you to Peter Farmer as well. Good night.
Thank you, Kara, appreciate it.
Good night.
Thanks. Ann Ogilvy is next up. If you have just a minute or two of comments, and then we can move on to our scheduled hearing. Thanks, Ann.
Thank you, Steve. Ann Ogilvy, 4 Turner Lane. Just wanted to say thank you to CEI and to Keating. I think this is a lot more information than we had at this time last year. That's very helpful. I would like to see the CEI conditions implemented in the next permit, and I want to echo Ms. Sanford's request for CEI to continue as the monitoring organization after time bond, because I think there was a real problem with some of the monitoring that was happening before, and I'm glad for the increased conditions. I would like to request that the select board fulfill its initial commitment, and which was made at multiple meetings, to have a citizens meeting that was dedicated to this. And I think it's actually in Keating's interest as well. I think we have this great opportunity here where we have a great report from CEI. We have a lot of information to clarify things that residents were very concerned about. And it sounds like some news there that people will be glad to hear. And so I think it would be beneficial and sort of relationship building to be able to have a time for residents to ask some questions. I think that some of the hydrology stuff that's been gone over is really hard to digest. I don't know how the select board even understands how the hydrology works. I think this is difficult. So I think if we could hear from the experts about it, both from CEI and from Keating, give residents the opportunity to ask questions. So I think to do this outside of the hearing process is what I was really hoping for, because I think that allows for a more open community process and communication, rather than the intensity that we've seen in the many hearing processes this year. So that's my request, my respectful request to the select board and to Keating and to CEI, and I really hope the select board will implement that. So thank you all.
Thanks, Hannah, appreciate it. And I know, and I think this is what Alex was getting to earlier, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I know there had been a discussion at the last time, that June 15th mega meeting, to have separate meetings on noise and dust and others. And I do think Anne's right that people will appreciate hearing what some of that feedback is going to be. So we will work to get something like that. I'm assuming that's what you're referring to. We'll work to get something like that on the schedule.
Yeah, and if I may.
Very briefly, Doug.
We'd be more than happy to have a meeting in our conference room with whoever would like to attend.
That's awesome. We got to get into our public hearing now, but thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, if you didn't want it in a formal
Appreciate
setting.
it. No, we promised it in a meeting, so we'll have it in a meeting. But thank you.
Very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Kind offer.
Thank you very much. You guys are excused. Unless you want to hang around, which you're more than welcome to. All right, we are now 14 minutes late, or 1 minute early for the 6:45 hearing, but we are 14 minutes late for the 6:30 hearing. So Kate, the process for this and the following one is,
So we vote to open the hearing?
okay, is there a motion to open the hearing? The 6:30, previously scheduled 6:30 public hearing for a special permit to remove earth products renewal for LLEC Incorporated.
Would you like me to read the hearing notice?
We gotta read that here.
So I offer a motion to open the public hearing, special permit to remove earth products renewal for LLC Inc. Notice is hereby given that a hybrid public hearing will be held on Monday, October 17th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. Zoom link URL to consider the application of James Simpson, DBA, LLEC Inc., 139 Greenland Road, Sterling, Massachusetts, for renewal of a special permit to remove earth products, sand and gravel, from a parcel of land located westerly of I-90, easterly of Jungle Road, identified on the Lancaster Assessor's maps as map 23, parcel 7, located approximately 700 feet easterly from the intersection with Jungle Road. A copy of the application and engineering plans may be viewed in the Select Board's office, Prescott Building, 701 Main Street, Suite 1, Lancaster, Massachusetts, between the hours of 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday through Thursday. All persons interested in providing comment should attend and be heard.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Great. All those in favor of opening the hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The hearing is open. Now,
So my understanding is that in the past, renewals did not require their own public hearing, but I believe the former board asked, and I don't know whose request that was, so that's why that's here.
Okay.
There have been nothing that the town has been forwarded relative to anything negative with this operation. All of the paperwork is in order. The bond has been received and has been verified, and all of their insurance requirements meet.
fantastic. Do my board colleagues have any comments, concerns?
I do, but.
I was not on the board when they changed the
So,
procedure, so.
yeah, Kate, I know it's been, depending on who's sitting on the board, it's changed back and forth as far as purview, but my understanding, and this came up with town council based on some other ones, is that every permit is a new permit, so it's not technically a renewal, but just as a matter of, I know it says renewal, but maybe it's something we want to check, and there's reasons why they said that.
But just to be clear, they have a permit with the town. We are
Well,
giving
they-
them another one, which by the very virtue is a renewal.
The last permit had lapsed for, when we was renewal for, I think, 3 or 4 years or something like that. So, and then we did go through this. So there was some question.
There are procedural questions for some, but do you have questions about this permit application
I
itself?
do,
Okay.
but I don't know if Jim is here.
I was going to ask if the board had any questions and then ask if there's a proponent, but this,
Yeah, I have
Just so you're
questions.
clear though, this is from council.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so,
I have no comments.
neither do I. So, and there is no proponent here.
Okay, so I have questions about his monitoring wells and that kind of thing, which last time was an issue. And is there any comments from Ty and Bond?
there's a whole,
Well, I've got the background. So,
this is their documentation for their review of.
yeah,
the-
I saw that.
So that's all of the comments that we have.
So my questions were in response to the basic,
Just for the record, for everybody watching, there is documentation from Time Bond.
well, yeah, but there was questions about, there was a reinstallation of a second monitoring well, which I couldn't find there. I could have easily missed it. So I was hoping to speak to Jim. I don't know if he's actively mining, and when he did not renew his last permit, he had not been actively mining. So perhaps we could continue it. Was he planning on coming?
I don't know.
Sorry.
I think the assumption was that this was going to be a relatively seamless process, was my guess.
Oh, unless, never with me in earth removal, right? It's I'm such an environmentalist, I do have the concerns about that one. So I have concerns about the wells.
What are the
I don't know
concerns
to say.
exactly? And maybe they're in the report that you're looking through.
They couldn't find the second monitoring well, and they were supposed to introduce a second one
When was this and,
during the last permit renewal, which we renewed for a year, 2 years. And so I cannot, I don't see that. I will look.
well, while you're looking, if there's any, do we take, I'm assuming it's a public hearing, we're required to take any public comment? Is that correct?
Correct.
So if there's any public comment, either in the room or on Zoom, throw your hand up. Well, in the room, you just walk to the podium. Seeing none, how are you doing?
I haven't found it. Kate,
Should I just say, when I just was trying to beef up on the site, there's very limited activity going on
There is,
that,
that's correct.
it's under the board's purview, whether the need for a public hearing is waived or not, so you're not required to do it, that, the company requested that. I believe, that the board did not waive that. I'm not sure whether the company, knew that or not. I would imagine that they did, but I think that there's no changes. As a matter of fact, they're pretty much getting ready to disband. They had only asked for a 24-month period their last time around, but COVID had delayed that, so,
so the things that I saw in the permit application, I could have missed it, and I'll ask you when maybe we can open the other hearing and go back to this when we can find it, because that's what I had in my packet was, that I see, and I easily could have missed it. Because I I appreciate Kate got me a special copy, was a permit issue date of 2018, expired in 2020, which was one that we had issues with because we didn't have there was missing a well. At that time, Ty and Bond had all kinds of issues. This is, of all our earth removal processes or projects, this is the lowest impact. You're right, Kate. They really do it sort of intermittently, and there was a question about whether they would even apply again. That said, any earth removal, well, most towns don't allow it. Any town, it's, it could be, this one is not, I don't think, but it can be a pretty heavy impact to the town. We have good soils for it, and we allow it, so we do it. But just to make sure that this is, and in particular, this is this land is zoned business or industrial, so it's great land to redevelop. So making sure that there's good levels to the soil and offset to the
is there
water is important.
Question?
Yeah, my question is that there's questions, and I personally would like to hear from the applicant and just try to get, but Kate, I'm probably missing this, so when we open the other hearing, if I could just find Ty and Bonds, and I'm sure this is on me.
I just saw the Ty and Bond logo. Please put your pen right on me.
I won't write on you.
I saw the Ty and Bond logo. As you were
There's
flipping
one
through.
on Chisholm's, which is coming up.
We apologize. We'll be right back at you.
This one is on Chisholm's.
I don't know. I just saw Ty. I wasn't
And I,
creeping on you. I just saw the Ty and Bond logo.
yep. And I probably am,
Alex, what are you looking for?
I would like to ask questions about closure, which is important because this will hopefully be a new industrial spot for us. I'd like to find if the second well site was
So-
finally found.
So
and
Tithe and Bonds report is, it looks like it's about 8/10 of the way through, toward the bottom of the packet.
Oh, thank you.
It's
There's-
header of Tithe and Bond, and top left it says April 29th, 2022.
You're just
Kate
looking-
Hodges.
You're just on the agenda.
I know, I see that.
I believe that's what you're looking for?
Probably, yeah.
And the stipulation of the stipulation of the permit that they were granted said that the site shall be restored with a minimum depth of 9 inches of loam, capable
Which
of
is
supporting grass
That's
growth.
consistent
Which
with
is
all the,
consistent
yeah.
with what we just saw in the last.
Right, so there's a whole, and I gave you that one too. It says page 105 on it, so.
Yep.
Yeah, what I'm
Those are
reading
meeting
is,
minutes.
there were no corrective actions noted during the inspection,
Correct.
with the exception of the expired special permit. Alex, did you hear that?
I did not, Jason.
So corrective actions states, there were no corrective actions noted during this inspection, with the exception of the expired special permit.
Correct. And then expired, my understanding is during COVID,
Right.
and it just continued to
So-
be put
It
on
would appear,
hold.
based on the report that I reviewed, we're looking at, that there's no reason why we wouldn't renew this.
Alex, it does say, it says, if excavation on site is to continue, wells, whatever, new well 1, new well 2 should be made accessible for groundwater measurements. Right? But there's no intention of continuing the excavation, so it sounds like that's where it
Good
is.
to go.
It does say the current permit is expired and a special permit renewal is required.
Okay, so there's no permit right now. They're looking for renewal.
Yes.
And,
We are the ones to grant that.
okay, can we
Should be
do
much.
this? Can we open up, while I'm looking at this, can you open up the other?
I think we have to conclude one action before we
We
open another one. I don't think we can have two
We can
hearings.
recess, you can.
I don't know how.
Technically.
I would
I don't know
move.
how-
Okay, well then just
I would
hold on.
move to renew the special permit for LLEC Inc. For the purpose of removing earth products.
Perfect. Is there a second?
Second,
Is there a discussion?
yes, Jason, I'm sorry. I'm looking at page 29. I find Chisholm's, but I don't find, I'm sorry, what page is it?
It's really toward the
Really
end.
toward the end.
8/10 of the way through the entire packet. Page numbering doesn't work because it's its own numbering.
See, it's right here.
No, that's New England Specialty Soils, that's a different permit.
No, that's
No, it's
the one.
LLC.
LLC, no, this is
Oh.
LLEC, that's New England Specialty
sorry.
Soils.
No, so then I read the wrong one, but that says the,
Yep.
This is Jim Simpson. So last time he
Yes.
came, we did, he was very, very good.
isn't this the one, Alex? Isn't this the one? Because I read this one. Is this not the one that we're talking about?
No, it's not. That LLEC is, I believe, you're talking about LEC, go
I'm back
back.
to the agenda.
Well,
there's
I don't know how to continue.
There's a motion that has been made and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion?
Okay, so, yeah, so
Discussion
if
is
I'm
on-
wrong on this, then I just read the wrong information from the wrong report. I would like to make sure that I've read the right information from the right report.
Would you just double check to make sure it's not,
I don't know how to double check.
well, the applicant and that should be,
So what this states is North Lancaster LLC and New England Specialty Soils LLC, formerly referred to as Harper Site.
correct, so this is a
Special-
different site.
So which one is that then? On the
This
agenda?
that's what I'm saying, this is James Simpson's, it's off of Jungle Road
Yeah.
and on the other side of 190,
Right.
abutting Leominster.
So we only
Off
have
170.
2 public hearings tonight.
Right.
One deals with Jungle Road, and I heard you just say Jungle Road. It says for the application of James Simpson, which is what I read to open the public hearing.
Yes, you do.
You did,
So I think we're talking about the right one then?
yes, but that information from the time bond report here is for New England Specialty Soils. That's what I'm saying, that's what the confusion was. So the technical review we're looking at is different. That's why I said I couldn't find the technical review for this.
So here's the application. Yeah.
I think it's a DBA situation. They have
It is, it is.
Yes, they have different.
So New England Specialty Soils is, so this says to consider the application of James Simpson, and I apologize for this, and I can understand the confusion, DBA LLEC, which is Sterling Road, off of Jungle Road. The technical review, the technical
No,
review,
it's right.
isn't the technical review for Harper's Boucher's, which is New England Specialty Soils? Yes, that's what it says. April 29th, 2020.
You're pretty late on the other one.
Yeah, we are.
I'm sorry, I just don't
No,
want
it's
to.
okay. I mean, so we have a
Right, no, I know. I'm just,
motion and a second.
Okay, so, given the fact that I understand, there's a motion to approve, there's a second. Given the fact that I had some questions about this one, I personally am not going to vote in the affirmative because this is, as I said, one of the best permits that we have, but there were questions at our last permit, which we had, about this. Namely, one of the wells was missing, they couldn't find it. There was discussions about how it was going to be developed last time, and Mr. Simpson was more than willing to discuss this and talk about it, and I was looking forward to the follow-up on that.
Okay.
The follow-up that I see here is actually formerly referred to as the Harper site, a different site, so I think it probably just got confused because of the similarity in LEC and LLEC, which, so I think it's just very similar and it easily, I can understand how it got confused.
Sure.
So, at any rate, so I'm going to vote, if we choose to proceed with this, I would rather wait till we hear from the applicant, but if you're eager to do it,
Well, I mean, I feel like we heard from the applicant with the application.
So if what I read is not correct, and it's wrong, then we should not vote, and we should make sure we have the correct documentation.
I'm happy to do that,
Fine.
if you'd like me to check it.
Then, do you withdraw your motion?
I withdraw the motion.
so they don't have to reapply, should I offer a motion to continue the hearing?
Yes.
So
That would be good. Till the 7th.
I would offer a motion to continuing the hearing of James Simpson, 139 Greenland Road,
I think, yeah.
to November 7th.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 300. That hearing is continued. Now, I would entertain a motion to open our 6:45 hearing at 7:01.
Move to open the public hearing, special permit to remove earth products from New Little Chisholm. Notice is hereby given that a hybrid public hearing will be held on Monday, October 17, 2022 at 6:45 PM, Zoom link URL, to consider the application of William Daniel Chisholm, trustee, Mountain Laurel Realty Company, DBA Stowe Sand and Gravel Company, 388 Goodrich Street, Lunenburg, Massachusetts, 01462, for the renewal of a special permit to remove earth products, sand and gravel, from a parcel of land located Assessor Map 5, Parcel 27, 0 Shirley Road, and 32A, 0 Chisholm Trail with access over Map 5, Parcels 30, 1922 Shirley Road, 31, 49 Chisholm Trail, and 32, 696 Fort Pond Road. A copy of the application and engineering plans may be viewed in the Select Board's office, Prescott Building, 701 Main Street, Suite 1, Lancaster, Massachusetts, between the hours of 9 a.m. and 4 p.m., Monday through Thursday. All persons interested in providing comment should attend and be heard.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The hearing is open. Is there a proponent? Seeing none, any discussion or a motion?
This one has the
Yes.
backup.
Yes, it does.
The permit issue date that we're looking at on the materials that we have is it was a 3-year permit, or 2-year permit, I'm sorry, August 2017 to 2019, but I think we renewed this one since then. I could be wrong. And I just wanted to make sure, because Stan Starr signed this, and we did have a hearing for a request from Steve Mulaney in 2021. It says, and perhaps it was the municipal, the municipal improvement.
I guess the question,
It's
do you
okay.
find this not in order? Or were you-
No, I mean, this one is, again, fine. I would
All right.
ask the questions about tie and bond, but I see some, so.
Is there a motion to proceed, or a motion in some way, shape, or form?
I would offer a motion to approve this, but I would like to have, because some of the conditions, again, the closures and so on, seem to be missing from this. So I would offer a motion, offer a motion to approve it pending review by a CEI or something like, somebody like that, independent, because I think we have the older conditions. Just make sure that all our conditions are consistent and in accordance with our bylaws.
So you're saying the permit application we're not going to have consistent conditions, is that what you're saying?
Right, that doesn't have any
But didn't we
conditions, or I
approve
could
it?
go
It's
into
a
the
renewal
conditions.
It's a renewal of the conditions that were prior.
As I said, this says 2017, but but I think that they did, or we did, extend it because of some of the COVID allowances for permit
Right.
extensions. But there are some conditions in here that I think we need to, just like we just did with Keating, make consistent with the rest of our bylaws. So I would like to give it a conditional approval pending.
Yeah, I don't know that we don't do conditional approvals. We either approve it or don't approve it.
Alex, have you reviewed the tithe and bond report that we received
in
on
the
February
packet.
24th for Chisholm?
Yes, I did briefly,
Okay. Do you have?
just briefly.
Okay. I mean, is there specific concerns? I mean, I heard you say that that
Yes, the closure, I didn't see
Can you
anything
point-
specifically
yeah.
about closure. Well, sure.
But number 2 in the special permit dictates the terms, which are the same as Keating.
Yeah, it's just,
That we just said we would sign off on.
So, yeah, I mean, it would be hard to hold them to a different standard.
no, I don't want to hold them to a different standard. In fact, it's easier for Chisholm to do it than Keating because theirs was the perimeter.
Yeah, I'm
so-
just saying it's the
yeah,
exact same language, number
Right,
2.
yeah.
Actually, we changed the number 2, or we proposed to change, the CEI changed this.
Right,
Right,
this
this
is a
is-
stricter standard than, basically they agreed they would go in and look at the,
Yeah, number 2 is the one that we just decided was not workable.
no, we didn't decide that, no, CEI and Keating decided that they would look at the circumstances in the quarry to determine whether or not that was too strict a standard and they didn't want to tear up plants, but that is a standard condition that we
Yes.
have,
Yes.
and they've
And it-
altered it with our agreement. So you're saying you'd like a weaker standard on number 2 than a stronger one?
No. I
Or a
want
different standard?
I wanted, this was much, what I had mentioned earlier with Keating is that the reason that I liked this is because it was much more specific. And in the Keating comments, they suggested that we strike this language, and you talked about the shall
That we
and so
altered,
on.
we added to the
Yes.
language, there's very
And
little
that-
struck, it's just added to, but yes.
Yes. And they added quite a bit of specificity, I can't say that.
Which
to
I
do
think
it.
is, yeah, specific
So,
more to their location.
There, and again, this is supposedly towards the end of his, and a lot of this is getting developed commercially. So, I notice, I feel the urgency from
Well, I just
both
feel
of
like
you,
we've,
so,
well, they've done their part, we've in theory reviewed all the materials, and we come to these hearings ready to take action one way or the other, and so.
well, typically
we should
hearing is so
take-
people, people to be heard, or this
That
is
is
a 2000.
entirely up to them.
I know,
So-
this is for the proponent.
So-
Right, and this is this is a hearing that was last approved 2017.
Because of a pandemic, yeah. Yeah.
Give it what it is, so, 5 years ago. So it would be, and a lot has happened in this area to know how it would be prepared.
So I will say, if you have legitimate concerns, then you can vote against the permit renewal.
Okay. That's fine.
I feel like we have a responsibility to come here prepared to take action. These folks have done their part. They have
No.
fulfilled their obligation on their end. It has been a long time since they've been renewed, yes, because there was a pandemic. There were delays in permitting for logical reasons. We're now at this point, they and the town deserve some level of action. It can be to turn it down, that's fine, but
Right.
they deserve some level of action. So,
Jason, can I ask you another, no, don't worry about it. It's good.
Absolutely. What would you like to ask?
No, it's okay. I was going to ask you for your sharp eyes, but that's okay.
yeah, I would just say that this is, the townspeople don't tune into our meetings or attend to watch us read through the materials.
No, it's not a matter of reading through the materials. It's a fulsome hearing is done a little bit differently in the past. So usually the applicant
But in the
is
past, a
here.
renewal hearing that is uncontroversial, as these are purported to be, is done this way. And I would.
It was
I would
controversial
suspect
last
that, I
time.
would suspect that folks expect the select board to show up, read up and prepared and ready to go and take action, so.
It is.
I would.
It has been read up. It's just that it was different.
So,
I have a different level of detail, so.
copy. Is there a motion?
Alex, what would you like to do?
Well, personally, I would love to hear from the applicant, but that's okay. I can vote against it, as Steve says.
Or you can make, I just said, is there a motion? We can make a motion to.
I'm a little, I want to figure out our teamwork right now. So Alex, what would you like to do as a team? What would you like this board to do?
Well, thank you for asking. As the last comment that we had from Ty and Bond is February of 2020, which is, normally we would ask for a review, and it can be Ty and Bond. I thought CEI, since it would be consistent with what we just had, and it came out so well. I'd like to have a review of that. And Mr. Chisholm, who has been an excellent partner with us as far as development goes, I'd like to have him have an opportunity to tell us about his exciting plans, so I would like to continue the hearing.
So I would suggest that Mr. Chisholm had an opportunity to come and present and chose not to. So I don't know that we're going to change that circumstance
Okay,
by.
So-
well, Jason asked.
So
and
Alex,
I-
as my teammate, I want to support you, but now's not the time to ask for that. The time to ask for that is, 4 weeks ago, before we've scheduled our public hearing and done all these things. Like, we've had a lot of logistical things that we needed to do to get to where we're at today. And I feel like we're not serving our local businesses by waiting until this moment to say, okay, oh, here's all the things I need. So I want to support you, let me finish, I want to support you in what you're looking for, but the timing is not ideal right now, that's all. So I need us to figure out a path forward other than continuance, because that doesn't serve anyone in the long term.
Well, I recognize that it is not ideal, and I apologize to you and Steve for that, and Kate and anybody else. I feel an awesome responsibility environmentally and for the neighborhood and future, and for business development that it's here to do this. And I did 4 weeks ago when we scheduled this, to be honest with you, my expectation is that we would have current review, because that had been tradition. Now, in fairness, Kate is new and Steve is new.
That has nothing to do with it.
Well, no,
Yeah,
because
I'll let you
we
finish,
do-
but that has
So
nothing to do with
please
that.
let me finish.
Yeah.
So the fact that we don't have a current review of the site conditions or permit is not typical for what we had, even in our past hearings we sat on, Jason. So when we received the packet, and I should have offered any of my hesitation a couple of days ago, but I didn't have that opportunity 4 weeks ago.
But you did a few days ago, and you could have said, geez, I don't feel comfortable doing
I
this, and we could
I
have,
should have, and to be
we could have then called the proponents and made sure they were here, or
So-
we could have gotten some information for
So,
you. If you felt that you were
I'm
coming.
sorry, but just for the record,
Hearing.
we emailed all of this.
You did.
4
4 weeks ago.
do you build this part 4 weeks ago?
Yeah,
Okay, so
Yes.
it didn't, okay, so I
Kathy
did,
had
then I apologize on that. I did
No,
not
I
see it,
just,
so-
I just wanted,
I just feel like.
So,
when it was getting, when the hearings were getting scheduled, that's all.
okay, so I apologize for that, because typically, when a packet comes out, I don't think that we have, and this is me, I typically
You don't think we
see the
have what?
packet, great advanced communication for me, just for me. Thank you, Kathy and Kate, for getting this out 4 weeks ago. I have to say, I assumed, you know what happens when you assume, that applicants come and we have current science that we've always, I have never sat in a hearing where we don't have current reviews.
Well, we've definitely had renewal hearings over my time years ago without having a full new review.
We didn't-
The bottom line is,
Your time, we didn't
we've
even
had,
have time.
yes, we have, not in the capacity they are now, but the bottom line is, we've had the information for 4 weeks. The business in town deserves an answer to their application, and I'm with you all on trying to do this as a team, but I do believe part of our teammates are the townspeople and the businesses who hope to do business here, so.
So I want to support you, and if, you know, if this was a month ago and we met and you said, I want to have a third-party review, I would most likely say, okay. But now, from the timing perspective, I think it's in the best interests of expediency, unless there's anything outstanding, unless we have reason to believe, I don't feel it's reasonable to put at risk any business in Lancaster at the last second for unknown reasons.
No, I agree with
That's
you,
my
and
opinion.
I understand that.
Sure.
I don't, based on what I read in the 2020 review, there were a few points and questions, but nothing hugely significant, so we can.
Okay.
So, based on that, I would offer a motion to approve this special permit for removing earth products
Just say the application of William Daniel Chisholm.
from the application of William Daniel Chisholm, trustee Mount Laurent Realty, DBA Stowe Sand and Gravel. I think it's a 2-year, is that right? I believe I saw.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah,
On the application, I'd have to scroll all the way back.
24 months, yep.
Yes, 2 years.
For 2 years. Is there a second?
Second.
Sorry, I said that so people would know.
Yeah, understood. Any discussion on the motion?
We had the discussion.
Hearing none, all those in favor? Jason? Ms. Turner?
Nay.
Mr. Kerrigan, aye. That is 2-1-0.
So for other permits and going forward,
Yep.
to be consistent, what standard that I was used to and comfortable with is that we have a formal peer review of the conditions and update.
I'm going to suggest that we discuss this later in the agenda, just since we've got a person sitting here for an hour and 15 minutes.
I move
waiting
that
to
we
be
close
appointed.
the public hearing for the Chisholm open hearing. Open
Second?
Public meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 300, the hearing is closed. Thank you all. All right. Now, we have 2 items. Come on, you're up. You're up. We apologize for the delay. We have 2 items. First, the Neshoba Regional High School Building Committee update. And then we are going to fill a vacancy on the Neshoba Regional High School District Committee. I would just ask whoever's going to present on behalf of the school building committee, stand at the podium and say your name and address. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I might suggest
Yes.
that you could adjust your agenda slightly to maybe do the appointment first, and then, because I don't think that's going to take more than a minute or 2. And whereas the building presentation might take a few more minutes, so.
Yeah, I'm perfectly happy to do that, sure. Are you in a time crunch to head out? All right.
I was actually looking at for my colleagues because.
Oh, they don't want to stick around. They don't want to stick around for the
My
presentation.
colleague, Ms. Park, has dinner on the table, so.
Then, hey, look, we have literally all been there, so we are glad to do that. Kate, can you take us through the process for, this has to be balloted, is that right? So we have, first of all, I want to thank Sean Windsor, who has served on the school committee for us for a long time and had agreed when telling us he was going to step down to remain in his seat until we could fill a vacancy. This appointment, I'll read the announcement. In accordance with the Neshoba Regional School District Agreement, the Lancaster Select Board and the remaining members of the Neshoba Regional School District Committee from the town involved acting jointly shall appoint a new member by ballot within 1 month after the vacancy occurs to serve on the Neshoba Regional School District Committee to serve until the next town election, at which time a new member will be elected to serve the remainder of the vacated term. We have had one resident step up, so it was a very tough choice, but you have been given the great responsibility. I yield to my colleagues on the school committee if you have anything to offer before we vote. And I'll see if you have something you'd like to say as well.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, for the record, Joseph Gleason, Neshoba Regional School District Committee.
You gotta give your address.
126 Brazil Lane,
It's
Lancaster.
for the record. Anybody who speaks has to give their name and address.
Generally speaking, that starts off with a comment or statement from the candidate. And I know that I was keen to point out to the board and to the town administrator that the processes that we go by for the appointment is by ballot. But generally, I was thinking in terms of there having been more than one candidate. With only one candidate for the position, I think just a voice.
We thought when you asked for a ballot, you were being very formal, but that's fine.
Well, I had initially heard that there was more than one candidate, and Stowe actually had 4 people step up for the recent vacancy in Stowe. So anticipating that we might see multiple people step up, I suggested that we might want to stick to the provisions of the agreement. It's only Mr. Simon. I don't think we need to do that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
You have to vote to forego
A ballot, yeah.
the ballot.
Mr. Simon, do you have anything you'd like to say before, do you want to get out of it? Do you want to withdraw your name from consideration? I know, yeah, sorry.
That is not a
He's
thing.
stuck it out for an hour and 20 minutes. He's not going anywhere. Well, we thank you in advance for your service. So I do believe, do you guys have to open a meeting
I
yourselves?
think we open a joint meeting.
Well, we're already open,
Right, so now you
guys,
would convene a joint meeting of the select board and the,
I believe you have to open a meeting and then we become a joint, and then we open a joint meeting.
That's true,
Yeah.
yes.
So you open your meeting, you do your roll call, then we
We're
open a
already
joint
open.
meeting. We're already
So you're
here.
coming and then you'll
Then you can
adjourn.
okay, then I will declare, as, if you don't mind, as a senior member of the Neshoba Regional School District representation, that we're in session for a joint meeting between the Neshoba Regional School representatives and the select board of the town of Lancaster for the purposes of appointing or filling a vacancy on the Neshoba Regional School District Committee.
Thank you. Now we are in a joint meeting between the Lancaster representatives on the Neshoba Regional School District and the Select Board. You guys have to vote. You can't declare, so you have to do a roll call.
Sorry.
Do they have?
So you want to,
You just have to vote to open.
Just,
yeah, so, all right, so why don't we do this then? Can I get a motion, to approve, to enter into a joint session with the, in a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Collins? Ms. Park?
Yes.
Mr. Gleason? Yes, it's unanimous.
we apologize, and I'm sure for you all it's confusing since you are not the full school committee, but you are the Lancaster representatives, and so the process is the process. Huzzah. Now, we do need a motion to waive the ballot requirement. Anybody can make that.
So
I
moved.
move,
So
seconded.
moved, seconded, okay. This will be a joint vote. I'll call the roll call on our side, I'll call the vote on our side, you call the vote on your side. All those in favor of the motion to waive the ballot requirement?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, 3-0 on the select board.
All those in favor of waiving the ballot requirement?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Mr. Collins, Ms. Park? Yes.
You're not voting, good. Good point, don't be voting. Okay. Now, is there a motion to appoint Mr. Simon? Or Mr. Simon, you still don't have anything you want to say? Quite all right. I very much appreciate a silent person in a public meeting.
Could I inquire of the candidate very briefly?
You can, if you, yeah,
It's
unless
going to
you.
be really brief.
Okay,
It's going to
good.
be really
Yeah.
brief. And I feel very strongly about
Yes.
this line of inquiry.
Yeah.
You live in Lancaster, correct?
Sean Simon, 800 Main Street.
Yes, I live in Lancaster.
And you're a registered voter?
Yes.
It's qualified by me.
Yeah, sounds good. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Does anyone,
What was the motion? We need the
A
approval.
motion to appoint Chandor Simon to.
Sandor Simon, or
Shan-
Shandor?
Shandor.
Shandor. Okay.
I had it right.
You did have it right.
Yeah, to fulfill the remaining term vacated by Sean Windsor. I
Until
do
the
not-
next town election.
Yes, until the next election.
Second?
Okay, is there discussion on the motion? Anyone have any?
There's been a lot of discussion that we had one representative, but based on what I've read about you and your willingness to serve, looks like you have a good background in education and interests. So we only need one when it's the best, right? So thank you very much for joining us.
And I too want to offer my thanks for your willingness to step into the void. It is, the public service is a noble endeavor and we appreciate the time. And also thank whatever family, friends, colleagues who are going to miss you many an evening or a daytime when you're working on behalf of the town. It's great that you're stepping up and we really, really, really do appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further from anybody? All right, then we will vote on our side, you vote on your side. All those in favor of the motion?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Unanimous.
Congratulations. Now, next up, you have to report to the town clerk at your earliest convenience to be sworn in so that you can get to work. Thank you very, very much. The town thanks you, and
dinner.
hope you service as well as we know you
Dinner.
will. So, yes, and you've got to get back to dinner. So, thank you all. Now,
Thank you too.
yield to the school building committee report. Mr. Gleason.
Thank you, Chair Kerrigan, members of the Select Board. For the record, once again, my name is Joseph Gleason, Neshoba Regional School District Committee. I reside at 126 Brazo Lane here in Lancaster, and I have the honor and pleasure of being, for the time being, the chairperson of the Neshoba Regional High School Building Committee. My purpose in requesting an appearance before you this evening was I wanted to just come before you this evening, along with our superintendent, Mr. Kirk Downing, who is here with me this evening to co-present, just to see and be seen more or less in regards to the building project. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation or slide presentation. I have no handouts. I'm just here. Yeah, thank you.
I was just saying, thank you. I didn't see what he was doing, but we thank you, yes.
Yes, and I figured that would be the case. So I'm just going to come and give you kind of a brief overview of where we are in the process. I'm going to allow our superintendent, with leave of the chair, to speak, give a few words and give his perspective on the project. I want to say before Superintendent Downing gets up, though Mr. Downing is not a resident of our district, he is working tirelessly behind the scenes and in front of the scenes as well to see that this project comes to fruition. The superintendent has a working group that he works with at the administrative level, and they are working hard, as hard, if not harder, than the building committee. So just to be very brief where we are.
Can you, Joe, at the beginning, just give like a thumbnail, I don't know how you present it, but just like how we got here, what we're doing? all
Okay,
that.
well-
Just 30 seconds on that as
Yeah,
we frame it.
where we are right now is a couple of years ago, about 3 or 4 years ago, a statement of interest was submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority. And they are the quasi-governmental authority that provides financial assistance to school districts throughout the Commonwealth to help them build or renovate existing, or either renovate existing buildings or to build new buildings. So our first foray into this process was respectfully declined, but we were encouraged once again to reapply as soon as possible. We applied the next year, and this was about 2 years ago, and our request for assistance was granted. So what we are right now is we are now in the MSBA's school build process. What the MSBA does is they basically break down the whole process into 8 separate modules. And right now, we are at Module 3. We are at the end of Module 3. Module 3 is the feasibility study phase. And we are fast approaching the end of this phase. So let me explain to you what the feasibility module is all about. Basically, this Module 2 was creating the management team. We go out and select a designer, and we just select a owner's project manager. For those of you who don't know, our owner's project manager is Skanska USA. They were the OPM on the Minuteman rebuild. Our designer is Kessel Booz Associates, Inc. They have an extensive amount of experience in school buildings and municipal buildings of all nature here in the Commonwealth, and they're our design architects. So what we've done now is we've got our management team in place, and we're now in the feasibility study phase of the process. And what we've done right now over the past several months would be is looking at, these are the factors they basically look at during the feasibility study: the educational programs, generation of initial space summary. They document existing conditions, they establish design parameters, they develop and evaluate alternatives to the project, and they recommend the most cost-effective and educationally appropriate preferred solution for our district. That's essentially what Module 3 is all about. During this phase, we're required to submit 2 reports to the MSBA. One of them is the preliminary design program, which we submitted at the end of June. That was approved with their commentary, which then leads us to where we are immediately. Right now, we are at the preferred schematic report phase of this project. Tomorrow night, the school building committee will be meeting. At that meeting, we will be voting on a recommendation to the full district committee on the preferred design option. So I'm not a handicapper, I don't take book, but if I were a handicapper and I did take book, I think that based on the commentary and the discussions that we've been seeing throughout this process, I would be very keen to point out that I think what's going to happen tomorrow night is the committee will probably vote for a new building, and a new building that will preserve the current stadium. And the reason we want to look at keeping the current stadium, and Superintendent Downey can speak more to this, is that right now the current stadium has a usable life. It's still a good stadium, it's still used for a number of different sporting activities and whatnot. In addition to that, the district is still paying for the renovation, the turf field and the track and the stadium. So there's been keen interest on the part of the building committee to make sure that whatever we do, we maintain the current stadium. So if I were going to, again, make book, I would say that right now it's leaning towards a new build, preserving the stadium. And what will happen tomorrow night is we'll make that recommendation to the full district committee. We'll be meeting on Wednesday night to either approve or disapprove the school building committee's recommendation, after which, if it is approved, the preferred schematic report will be submitted to the MSBA. We'll await their commentary, and if approved, we then move into the schematic design. After schematic design is we get to budget construction. So right now, you're probably looking at, I don't want to say, when we say, Kirk, maybe sometime after the first of the year, would we be looking at, we'd be looking to prepare a budget and to look at the costs involved with whatever the district committee has approved for the new build or the renovation. And that's basically where we're at. I thought it was important that we come put face to names, show what we're doing, articulate a continued willingness to come back on a regular basis to keep you abreast of what we're doing, and just to make sure that we're sensitive to the issues and the needs and desires of the local communities, the select boards for our sending communities, and to the general public. So with that in mind, I will conclude my comments, and if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to turn it over to Superintendent Downing for a few words. He's significantly more articulate than I am, and I'm sure he has quite a bit to say about this project.
I may still have some questions for you, so don't run off.
Oh, my goodness.
Mr. Chair. Yes. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Kerrigan, Mr. Turner, Mr. Allison, of course, Ms. Hodges, thank you. I am Kirk Downing, Superintendent in the Neshoba Regional School District, Holliston, Massachusetts.
Won't hold that against you.
Thank you. This is an exciting time, and so as Attorney Gleason is able to express to you some of the detail of the logistics of the process we've gone through, I too will avail myself of this committee at your request to bring forward and answer any questions I possibly can to engage with our community, because the next 12 months of this project will be the most important 12 months of the project, and that is in making our case out to our 3 communities that we need this new high school. And so in doing so, we have been working as a group to look at the preferred schematic design. I want to implore anyone who may be watching out there in Lancaster and to this board, this is not a design of the new high school. It is a proof of concept. And it's as simple as that, a proof of concept. And even the design estimates that come forward are not coming forward to say this is exactly how much the project is going to cost. It's to give the school building committee, well, first of all, the working group, then the school building committee, and ultimately the school committee, a sense of what the cost options look like relative to each other in terms of the cost estimates off of those initial designs. That's what we'll be looking at the next couple of days. From there, once the preferred design is submitted, it's going to be a lot of work of interface with our community and talking about the design of the building as we move into the full schematic design. Because that's where we'll take the work that we did in the Ed Visioning process last year. And that Ed Visioning process consisted of 14 Neshoba Regional High School students, 10 members of the community, district officials, educators, and of course our architects. Mr. Gleason came as an auditor and observer of the process over the 3 days, and that's where we outline the vision of what it means for our students to get the best that they can get for a future that really is a future we can't necessarily predict or define for them as the world is everly changing. So we need a high school that is going to be able to adapt, change, and grow with our students the way our economies, the way science, the way technology is growing today. So thank you for allowing us to appear here. And again, I'm happy to return with updates and certainly at your request as well.
So before you leave, I have a couple of questions and comments, and then I'll ask my colleagues if they do as well. First, I'm glad you clarified that, because I was going to ask you to clarify so that folks watching realize that some ghost building hadn't been designed and this all of a sudden was going to be the way it is. So I thought that was a very important. I'm a little bit familiar, although enough to be dangerous, with the MSBA process. So I'm glad you clarified that point. A couple of other questions. I'm assuming the where this new school goes, is it decided to go on the current property, or you're still exploring? Because everyone in town always says, oh, I hear they want to put the school over there, or they want to put the, so I just want to give you an opportunity to clarify. If that's still an open question, that can be the answer too, but I just want to.
I do have an answer for you. That actually was earlier in the process of phase 3 of feasibility. And we have to determine locations and go through a process of eliminating locations to figure out the viability of where the school can be located. We have a provision within our regional agreement that states it must be located centrally to the outer reaches of our towns. So that fell squarely within Bolton and just a touch into Lancaster. And then when it came down to looking at the possible square footage of what was needed for the project, it was, all other sites were ultimately eliminated, so yes, the building will be placed on its current site.
I was aware of that provision, I just want, people, I don't know if they were buying it from me, so the superintendent now told you, so
That's right.
Do we know yet, from the MSBA, the percentage of reimbursement yet that we might be
No,
getting?
we don't. The percentage of reimbursement, we were approved and it started at just over 49%. But I am going to tell you all out there in Lancaster and here in this room, 49%, the reimbursement rate will be much lower than that. There are unreimbursable costs involved in the project, so that rate is of reimbursable costs.
Copy that, yeah.
So, for instance, in some of the
it's not the
design
total project.
proposals that came through, some of the there were one of the options had to be eliminated because it would involve building temporary structures as we go through a phased design. Those are not reimbursable costs, so we didn't want to invest in non-reimbursable costs to that degree. So the total project reimbursable rate comes in a much lower percentage than
I appreciate that clarification, because people hear reimbursement rates and assume they can, when they read the number of the school in the paper, they can just multiply, and that's not necessarily the case, so I appreciate you clarifying that. I have one more question, and then just a quick comment. My question is, and you may not know this, but the capacity percentage that this new building envisions.
Thank you for this.
Yeah, is very important, because to your point on building a school that's for the future, like, what's terrible is, we did this with the new school that's now 20-something years old down at Burbank. It was, you were supposed to build it to 80% or whatever it was of capacity. By the time we actually got in it, we were at 90, I think, percent. So it sort of, it planned obsolescence if you don't plan appropriately. So is there a plan, like what your thoughts are on the capacity?
I would love to talk to you about the capacity. Currently, our high school is 834 students. This building project is rated for 925 students at a utilization rate of 85%.
Meaning 15% might be absent.
Yeah, meaning 85% utilization, like your total
capacity, got it,
population.
yeah, got it.
Capacity's there, but at a 100% utilization rate, the school could house 1,086 children in that regard. To give you a sense, the largest population ever at the high school at one time in Neshoba was 1,063 students. So as we look at that and we look at our capacity right now, I think the 925 is a good number for us because that number does allow for growth within our system.
So 925 is 85%.
Is 85% utilization rate.
Got it. Okay. And then my only comment, and he's not on the screen, so I'm definitely saying this because my dear friend Jay Moody would always say, as you're planning something like this, please, let's not build a school that is a monument to an architect. That is a direct quote from Jay Moody, so he wants a nice and wonderful, I'm saying this for Jay's behalf, we want a beautiful school that our kids will learn in and do well. We are just, and I'm sure Mr. Trussell is thinking about all this as he's on the Zoom, the costs to the community are going to be a significant thing that we're going to be talking about over the next year plus, and we just want to be mindful of that as we move forward. But obviously, you're already thinking around the corner when it's coming to the temporary buildings and other aspects of the build that we could limit costs on. So we appreciate that, and just want to make sure I mention that at the outset.
Your colleague shares the sentiments of several residents that were at the last forum, expressing it with different words, but expressing essentially cost management and how do we ensure that we're building this responsibly. And we have a team from both GANSA and KBA that I think are going to lead us through a very responsible process.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Do you have any responses to my questions? You don't have to if you don't want to.
No, I just wanted to echo the, and I don't want to keep it because,
Well, it's quite all right. They haven't gone.
We're here at our own meetings, you don't need somebody saying the same thing over again. But I did want to echo, as a resident of the district, Superintendent Downing's commentary. We have had some feedback regards to, what former select board member Moody had said. And I didn't say much about this at the forum the other night, but I will say it tonight to the select board and hopefully to the other select boards. To date, there has been, and I think I can say this without any degree of uncertainty, to date there has not been anything that would lead anyone to believe that our architects aren't looking out for the best interests of the district. And in addition to that, we also have an owner's project manager. For those of you who aren't familiar with construction, they work like almost like an advocate for the district. And there has been nothing that has been seen by way of an indulgence or something that's unnecessary at this point. I will tell you this, and again, without belaboring too much, what the future of education is, it's much different than what we see in our current educational facilities. During this process, the district engaged in site visits, and we saw some new builds throughout the Commonwealth. What the future of education provides for is collaborative learning, bigger open classrooms, more team building, more team working together. It's not going to be, as our architect once quoted saying, not the sage in front of on the stage. It's going to be a much more collaborative educational endeavor, and we're hoping to build a building that will meet those educational needs. In addition to that, and I'll just sum it up quickly right here, that one of my colleagues on the committee had asked about the size of the building. And while I think that the building, based on what was discussed at the last forum, will be perhaps slightly similar in square footage, the overall building is probably going to be significantly more compact, and our architects and our designers promise us it will be significantly more ecologically friendly.
Good. And I don't want to be very clear, I was not suggesting the architect was going to be running around throwing our money into a fire.
No, it's a legitimate question, and people have been asking that at the forums, and I can state without any degree of uncertainty, to this date, there hasn't been anything that's been presented to our building committee that would suggest that the architects were building a monument to their own.
And I'm thrilled to hear about the owner's rep. That is very, very important in a project of this size and scope. So, thank you. I am done. So, I yield to my colleagues. Do you have any questions, comments, concerns?
So, first, thank you, Joe in particular. Brett, I know you're there picking things up and not slacking someone. I have a little familiarity because I sat on when this was a school and the other building. We went through the feasibility process, and it's a long, arduous process, and then sat on the school building committee that yielded Luther Burbank, the current Luther Burbank and Mary Rowlandson. So reflecting, I know, I mean, I'm amazed you probably have no time at home, but some of the things that we dealt with, some of the things that you both touched on, was the capacity issue, and certainly a different model. What we had done, and I'd be interested in your projections, because I know that they used the cohort method for determining what the population trends were going to be. And our population here in this region has been relatively flat over the last couple of years. We actually had hired a planner and did a special population study. And at that time, there was a lot of in-migration because Lancaster was growing a lot. It seems to have flattened off. However, based on some of the projects that we're looking to now, wherever they may end up, we can expect to have more students. So did you use the sort of the cohort method? Do you need to just, because my theory was both in that school, and I'm hoping with Neshoba, is that we build for enough future capacity, and I just wondered how the methodology, and if you did that.
So the methodology is the MSBA methodology.
Which is, right.
We do not get to choose the methodology or the number at all. And so in doing that, they use their method, and the school district, and at the time Superintendent Clenchey, worked with the MSBA on determining that number. So at 925 is that number, and then looking at what the peak enrollment of the district was, I frankly was worried about a lower number. They were able to get that number higher due to the forecast of potential growth in all three of the towns. So when we look at this, I had a conversation with one of the residents recently, Mr. Tressel. And when we talked about this, the school system, in terms of what our space availability is in our classrooms, could take on more students in our school system, strictly from the town of Lancaster. So to understand the scope of that, I think there would need to be deeper understanding of what the reach of the building that is anticipated. But just at our high school, if you were to break it down by a third, and you had, 250 extra seats, that's 80. You could essentially get 20 more students per grade level just out of the town of Lancaster into the project building at 100% capacity. So I do think the number does provide us an appropriate buffer for anticipated personal residences in the town.
Okay. Yeah, they used to base it on essentially birth records and not account
Yeah.
immigration, so we sought a waiver to the MSBA. So that's,
Well, and
I
I've done.
don't know if we need to, because trends have changed. That was a
I want to validate the statement you also made about enrollment, and particularly from the town of Lancaster. It has been flat out of the town of Lancaster really for the last 15 years or even more. I've done a deep enrollment study of the district, and I see those same numbers. So
Okay.
that is accurate.
Okay. Thank you for reiterating Steve's thanks and yours. So roughly 50%, but expect much less with the unreimbursable costs.
Yeah.
And I guess you'll factor that into the budget and we'll have a better idea, because people are certainly going to be looking at the numbers when we go to a vote.
Yeah.
So,
So ultimately, we hope to get to that place by the end of the school year, in having so much harder numbers to that. If I said this statement, I know I'll be wrong the moment I say it, so I'll hold it back. But there's a point that comes this spring where it's not even to final design. They can project a cost for the purpose of raising funds for implementation. So those will be coming out. That will be the number. So at that point, that's what we'll be producing in the community, and any community advocacy groups for the project will be operating under that understanding.
so given the fact that you've identified the site that you talked about, essentially in the same campus that you're in now,
Yeah.
doing some of those things, I know Bolton does not have public water and sewer, so I'm assuming that you are probably have you already done that kind of testing, so you figured out, okay, sort of a space to where you put in?
There's a wonderful slide at the beginning of the last presentation that shows the check marks of all the boxes that they have to hit for the MSBA prior to submission. And one of those is exactly what you're talking about, water systems and well testing. So the current well, and one of the reasons why, frankly, it's a big factor in needing a new high school, the current well is located in the basement of the school adjacent to the oil tank.
Nice.
And so the location of the new building, the architects would be looking at preserving that well and utilizing that well, but of course they would have a system that would take it to the school. Yes.
Smooth the oil tank.
Great.
Right, and one more. Given the fact that, I'm a tree hugger, you probably got that, but also with the energy that is, anticipated energy cost, is there a desire or a goal to have this LEED certified?
Yep, there is.
Thank you.
So we
So
actually,
our long-term cost will be
Yep.
more stable?
so the working group recently had a meeting on just that purpose in the past 6 weeks. So yes, green options are being afforded, and I know in turn what you actually get percentage credits on your reimbursable costs on green designs. So yes, that is being put out there.
Fantastic. Thank you. Mr. Allison.
So first, Mr. Gleason, I want to say thank you. Super grateful for your commitment to this town, and just I'll express to the residents how lucky we are to have you. So thank you, and Mr. Downing, really grateful for your approach. I really think how you take on your role is a good fit for me. Hopefully, it's a good fit for the residents, and they appreciate it also. So first question to either: how do you measure success of this project? When this project is over, how will you know it's successful or not?
I'll take this one.
Attorney Gleason, all yours.
It's very simple. I am by no means an expert in school building, but this is not my first school building project serving as a district committee representative. I did one probably about 30 years ago, my former district of the Merrimack Valley, and I learned very early on in that project, there's two factors that you look at to make sure this is a success. This project comes in on time and on budget. And Mr. Allison, I'm not trying to be flip, I think I said that early on in the process of selecting the school building committee. The one thing I can take away from my former district was on time, on budget.
Awesome, thank you. And to either of you also, last question, I think, is how do you instill confidence in the residents of Lancaster that the 68 cents of every one of their tax dollars is being thought about, scrutinized, and invested appropriately as part of all of this process, not just today, but in the future, as part of the school building effort?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand your question.
Sure. So 68 cents of every tax dollar from Lancaster residents goes to the school district. And we're going to start paying for this new school, and all of that is going to be factored in. My question is, how do you instill confidence in the residents that the committee, that the process, that Lancaster residents are being looked after, and that their tax dollars are being well spent as part of this process?
Well, I can boil that right down to the mechanics of the school building committee. When we formulated this committee, it was the priority of the district committee that the individuals who have voting authority on this committee be residents of the district. The only member of our school building committee who has a voting position and is not a resident of the district is sitting right here. So what we've done is we've created, we have 14 residential members, with Mr. Downing as our 15th, and we've weighted that right across the district. We have 5 members of the building committee from Lancaster, 5 from Stowe, 4 from Bolton, and we have Superintendent Downing to make 15. This has been a priority of all of our members, both at the district committee level and at the school building committee level, right from the get-go. I appreciate, and I understand your concerns regarding the budget and how it affects our, when I say the budget, our school budget, and how it affects the overall town budget. But from a mechanical standpoint, as I said earlier in my presentation, there is nothing that I've seen, and I don't think anybody could point to anything that we've seen or done to this point that would indicate that the fiduciary responsibilities of our committee are not being met. And I think Mr. Chair Kerrigan pointed out, one of the things that really will serve to assist us going forward is our OPM. That the OPM has been invaluable in making sure that, as again, they serve almost like in the role of an advocate to make sure that the interests, the best interests of our district, they work for us. They don't work for the architect. They work as an advocate for us. And I have nothing but good things to say about Skanska, and they've done an excellent job so far. So I don't have anything further to say on that. So do you have anything to add?
Just one thing. As Mr. Allison so appropriately points out, we're beholden to our taxpayers. My measurements are about student learning. And so when you talk about the 68 cents on the dollar, our communities, I'm not saying just our families, our communities outside the borders of our town count on that we're educating kids to have the skills and competencies they need to be productive, positive members of our community. And the place that I'll point to you that is showing you you're going to get value is that for the first time in quite a long time, if not ever, we have a 5-year strategic plan that's been voted and approved by our school committee that outlines the action steps for what we expect out of the school system. And if you track our school committee meetings, you'll see that all the superintendent reports that are going before our school committee members outline the very specific steps within that strategic plan that we are tackling on a bi-weekly basis, are we not? So these are the ways that we are making our work public so that the residents of Lancaster know that everything that we do in the school system is in service to the children that walk through the doors of our schools every day. And we are treating that same courtesy to this building project. As Mr. Gleason knows, I think this is where we make a good team. He's able to articulate all those facets that are critically important, being on time and on budget, for the purpose of educating kids, so that they are outstanding members of this community and communities that they will go live in someday.
Awesome, thank you both.
Thank you.
I have a few-minute thank you to these people.
You can't, well, so we're going to do public comment next. Did you want to do it in that, or do you want to do it?
Oh, if they're still around, I'd like for them to hear it.
You can do it. Can you do a 1-minute thank you to these people?
Yes, I can.
Can you do it from the podium?
Sure. Rob Zidek, 103 Toledo Road. I just want to tell you folks how impressed I was with your presentation last week. The clear enunciation of the financial and educational quality objectives, the clear presentation of the various options with the pros and the cons, the clear priority of the folks who gave financial success and educational quality priority way above rushing a decision, the excellent professionalism in which you communicated with the public, the showing of the timeline that you just mentioned, the absence of anyone picking their own personal favorites and trying to promote it. As the last one, I especially appreciated the very warm reception of a student's comment about a topic which many of us are not aware, which is the perspective of a student with autism difficulties. I encourage all residents to view that presentation, view the slides, and provide the feedback in the link provided. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. With that, thank you. Thank you for your outreach. Thank you for your service. Mr. Simon, welcome again to the show that never ends. We appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Thanks, Kirk. Appreciate it.
5 minutes.
So, no, that's, yeah, I'm, with the acceptance of the board, I'd like to suggest a 5-minute recess. Hearing no objection. We're in recess for 5 minutes. Out of recess. Thank you, everyone. All right, next item on the agenda is public comment period. In the interest of time, well, anyone who is in the room, Rob Zidek, 103 Cleaver Road, will speak, and then anybody who would like to speak online, please raise your hand. Reminder, we like to have a polite discord in our meetings and will not tolerate direct attacks or anything that strays in that direction. Rob will give you 3 minutes for comments. Is that good? Thank you. And hit it.
Good evening, Rob Zidek, 103 Cleaver Road, speaking as a private citizen of Lancaster, Massachusetts. This morning I read a comment to the Council on Aging / Lancaster Community Center members, which I will now summarize and amend for tonight's present and future audience. I expressed appreciations for the efforts they and so many in the community put forth to address the financial, physical, and emotional challenges that become part of the aging process. I had 3 brief topics relating to this. The first topic related to the Medicare enrollment period now in progress and the benefits to seniors of the SHINE program. The second topic regarded finance options as resources for homeowning fixed-income seniors. Third topic I'll read verbatim. Besides my own personal wish to engage in these activities, why am I bringing these up now? It is because I and so many other seniors are tired of campaigners in this town making the false claim that the only financial concern we have is our property tax bill, that it is this bill alone that keeps us here or drives us away, and that only these campaigners' election and only a yes vote on a highly complex and very risky pair of rezoning measures will bring us the financial relief that we need. Case in point, at the October 6th hearing, someone finally had the courage to state the truth. For the short term, our taxes will actually rise if the developer gets this rezoning. Does it not dawn on them that short term could be the rest or most of the rest of our lives? So instead of coming to our salvation, this is sounding more like, hey seniors, we are asking you to bear the huge cost and tax increases for all or a good part of the remainder of your days here, so the rest of us may get a better tax bill years from now. And underline may because facts indicate the probability is very low. I ask COA folks to think about these disrespectful and duplicitous declarations and to join me and others as we voice our objections at the local and town meetings. There are many, many other ways, including all of the COA's fine activities and perhaps my suggestions above to help those in need. Later in the meeting, there was some discussion about the many bad actors who take advantage of seniors via email scams and the like. Similarly, when I spoke to a trusted loan officers about seniors' equity loan options, she likewise mentioned how there are so many people take advantage of seniors. That is, those of us who find ourselves facing financial hardships and who are inclined to believe even whimsical promises of recovery. since I like to believe that no one would deliberately mistreat our seniors this way, I ask everyone to stop with this "We are going to save the poor seniors" campaigns. Even if it's not intentional, it is wrong. Nothing can refute rapid passage of time. So unless someone can produce an actual timeline, doubtful since none seem to exist, showing all the tax changes over the next few years for all of the 5+ general development possibilities, please discontinue using us as your campaign poster. If you truly want to help us, start putting facts and truths ahead of personal, political, and power pursuits. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no hands raised, Ann Ogilvy.
Hey Steve, Mike Ogilvy, 4 Turner Lane, and my comment is regarding the earth products removal hearings that happened this evening.
Sure.
And there was some mention that there was an earth product removal committee. There were proposals for that I've seen as recently as 2 years ago that never went anywhere. I think they just kind of got lost somewhere along the way. I would love to see those resurrected. I also watched video recently of a 2020 meeting where Orlando Pacheco and the former select board members, Walter Sadrowski, Ken Starr, were reviewing a new, maybe a little bit earlier, maybe it's 2019, but they were reviewing a new schedule, talking about a new schedule of fees for earth product removal within Lancaster, and we're talking really seriously about the kind of revenue that something like that could generate, because these businesses, particularly Keating, which is a many billion-dollar industry, its parent company is a many billion-dollar company, really looking at the impacts of these heavy industries on the town in terms of the roads and in terms of the air quality and in terms of the noise and quality of life. And thinking about ways that the town could benefit a little bit more from these industries. So would love to really encourage the select board, as we seek other revenue streams, to reconsider what seems to have been brought up a few years ago and then never really pursued, likely because other things had to displace it. But it seems like a worthy investment of some time by the current board to really consider where should these permits be heard, and how much should people be paying for these permits given the nature of the impacts on the town. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Ann, I appreciate it. All right, seeing no more hands, we will close public comment. Thank you all. Town Administrator report. Town Administrator?
Thank you. I will be brief. Kate Hodges, Town Administrator. So, as far as recruitment updates, you've been introduced to Kevin Matrano, who is the Recreation Coordinator, and Michelle Courier, who is the current Recreation Coordinator or Director. We were able to meet with her, Kelly and I, and we'll be discussing a role that she can play in the beach and some other part-time per diem work around her own schedule, and that was great. We really want to capitalize on her knowledge and the good work that she's done. And this year, the beach was the first time it ever turned a profit. So clearly she knows what she's doing.
Hey, hold on, I was a lifeguard back in 1987 and 88. I think we did pretty well then. No?
I can't say.
Well then, without any evidence to the contrary, I think we turned a profit then too.
Exhibit A.
Okay, never mind, keep going.
So, maybe it's the second time it
Yes, let's just say second.
Okay. So Kelly Dolan, our Health and Human Services Director, will be interviewing 4 folks for the Outreach Coordinator position. In conversations with the police chief, we are looking to have the mental health coordination be part of that. It was an initiative that was brought up by the chief some time ago, and I think there was a variety of different iterations of it, so that's certainly something that we're going to hope to at least dedicate 10 hours a week to for that, which is great. Kelly has met with the painting company and finalized colors for the portions of the center that were not painted by the Friends. And the commercial grade cleaning and disinfection that was ordered by the Board of Health some months ago will be taking place over the weekend, which is great because it doesn't necessarily impact the things in the daytime, but this Saturday and Sunday, the community center will be closed. We'll make sure that we're posting that various places, including on the door, and Kelly is getting in touch with folks who do the Saturday morning exercise class. We also converted an area that was previously used as storage to a new office space. It's actually quite bright and sunny, and that's going to be used for the Board of Health. And also, we've been working with Neshoba Board of Health to have visiting nurse, some medical clinics that are in there, blood pressure clinics, things that relate to seniors, and we're also having a place for Shine. Halloween on the Green event is Sunday, October 30th from 4:30 to 7:30. This will be the first Recreation, Health and Human Services debut, and we have been really blessed to be working with Wynn Clark and Monica Tarbell and members of the school MRE PTO. So it's going to be a much larger event than it's been, at least in recent years. We're going to be using the horse sheds, the town green, the First Church. Again, combination with the PTO will include trunk or treat. So if anybody's interested in decorating their trunk, our goal is to have the entire
Trunk of their car.
the trunk of their car. We're encouraging people to dress up. There's going to be a food truck there from Luca's. There will be pumpkins that are donated on the town green for people to decorate. There's a magic show that is co-sponsored by the library, and I think it's going to be a really, really fun day. The Board of Health had a very successful clinic on Tuesday, October 11th, where they vaccinated over 125 residents for flu and the COVID-19 boosters. They also gave out plus or minus 80 COVID-19 test kits to seniors. So special thank you to Jeff Pastor and the other members of both the Neshoba and Lancaster Board of Health. And a special thanks to Pastor Ram from the College Church, who allowed that site to be used again. And lastly, Lancaster Recreation, as we've been talking about, is growing, and so we are doing a gently used toys, craft, and activities drive. We have quite a bit of materials there for senior-related programming, which is great. There isn't as much, video games, movies, outdoor sports and games, art supplies, board games that are more for children. So if there's any laying around anybody's home that they're not interested in having, we'll be collecting this week, specifically this week, and then reassessing what we have and going from there.
And where should they bring
And they
those?
can drop them off at the community center between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. If people just want to leave them in the doorway, we can do that, and Kelly will be periodically be checking them and bringing them and storing them.
Fantastic.
That
It was a
is
fantastic report.
it.
Any questions for our town administrator?
No, sounds like good times.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Under administration, budget, and policy, we have 3 items. The first is calling the special town meeting to be held on Monday, November 14th at 7 p.m. to be held at the Mary Rowlandson Elementary School Auditorium. And then we have to basically establish and then close the warrant, yes?
Yes, if you'd like, I believe that we have 11 articles. It could be 12. I'm waiting on one thing to come through, whether we can combine them or whether they have to be 2 separate. But essentially, we are approval of prior fiscal year bills, special act affirming the results of the May 22nd annual town election, the enterprise rezone, the North Lancaster Smart Growth Overlay District, ground-mounted solar installation, 2 scrivener's errors, one for section 220-8.1 and one for 220-8.4A. and 8.4B.
Of those, yeah.
A standalone solar system, so this would be the battery storage. If you attended the last conservation and planning board meeting, they were talking about that. FY23 budget amendments and corrections. It isn't all gloom and doom. We received, excuse me, some money from the opioid settlement that we'd like to put in to the COA budget for mental health, and a couple of other items there. Amendment to the DPW FY23 capital plan because they received their Chapter 90 funds and would like to purchase some heavy equipment pieces with that. And then an article to remove the police chief position from Mass Civil Service, which I understand has been done, but the time has expired. So we need to restart that clock again.
Okay.
And we've heard from several people regarding their desire to attend town meeting, but having conflicts with childcare, given that it is a school night. I have worked with the school administration, and the superintendent has been marvelous about that. We are going to be utilizing the the gymnasium for childcare free of charge, and we're going to have students from the schools who are in need of community service hours for National Honor Society, but they will do it for free, but I'm sure that they would appreciate tips, which they will pool.
Isn't that kind? Well, that's fantastic. And I know that I've heard from a number of residents concerns about overflow, and I know we'll work with the school to make sure that if there is not enough capacity for the town meeting, that room will be
So just on that end, we have 2 rooms available. We'll have the cafeteria and we will have the auditorium. Both will be set up. If and when we need to utilize the cafeteria, the moderator will then appoint a deputy moderator, and we'll have a switch that's going. We're going through a bit of a trial run on that next week, and then certainly the week of town meeting. One of the things that I think is really important is to have presentations at town meeting. I was a little dismayed when I went to May town meeting, not that it wasn't well done, but just I think it's important to have presentations so people understand what they're looking at and have those available. And so we'll be setting up the stage a little bit differently because I'm gonna hopefully ask the moderator if it would be all right to use the screen. And then we'll be probably talking as a board about who wants to present what. And I think, keeping things to a 2 minutes won't prolong the town meeting time.
And we'll have a redundant screen in the overflow room should the need allow.
It would be, it will be captured on television.
Perfect. Fantastic. Okay. Any questions for Kate about that? Or then do we move to close the warrant for the special town meeting? Questions first?
All the articles sound great. Do we have a draft or anything that we usually look at, or is it just going to?
You'll absolutely have a draft. It's just that
things
a
are
number
still.
of items we're just being added, yeah.
I literally have been doing nothing but this for the past 3 days. So I got it down to 11 because this is not.
Yeah, I would say when I was in this building several hours ago, there were 7. So it's
Yeah,
grown,
no, I'm
but-
sure
but,
there's
yeah.
lots and lots of tweaking and work to be done for
That's
that. We had I think the presentations are critical. Thank you for planning for those. We've had requests for presentations regarding the zoning articles ahead of time.
So we do hope to have, well, first we have this document that we have worked on that will hopefully describe, well, it does describe in great detail the zoning proposals. And then there is a hope that we
So
have.
did I miss this, or did we just send that?
This is just finalized today.
Okay,
Take a peek.
okay.
It's all the information you saw in the presentation that Kate delivered
Okay.
for the planning board hearing. So none of it's new material, it's just
Yep.
compiled expertly by the town administrator with some help from folks in the organizing.
The idea is that it just is reflective of statements of fact and numbers that will, the numbers that are on the chart there, pending the board's approval, will be ones that the finance committee will be discussing and adopting at their meetings. I I think it would be helpful to have this on the website. I can certainly place it in conspicuous spots around town. We don't have a whirlwind printing budget, so, but I think that trying to put some maps out there and boil down the language in some complex articles to sort of, this is what it asks. If you vote yes, it might be this. If you vote no, it might be this. And that's it.
And then we do hope to have a date. We had discussed this when we were hoping to have the special town meeting in September. We still hope to do it about 10 days, 2 weeks before, I think it's the 3rd, maybe? Does that make sense?
It was on a Thursday.
Hoping to do something here in the Nashway Room, and of course, give people an opportunity to come on the 3rd of November.
No, we were gonna do it in there.
Oh, in the Old Town Hall, sorry. In the Old Town Hall to allow for more folks to come, where we will have a neutral presentation of all of the items and give people an opportunity to understand what is on the warrant before they show up at the town meeting.
That would be great.
Yeah.
There's been requests for that. The
Excuse me.
only caveat that I can say is that the Old Town Hall, the acoustics are horrible. Nobody can hear. So maybe we could borrow the school or something for that, just so
Well,
people can
yeah.
hear.
I'll yield to
But-
Kate on the logistics of figuring that out.
Okay.
But yeah, I
But
just,
the idea is great.
the concept of it is,
Just so people can hear.
yeah.
And I gather we can look at this and make any comments or something like that. Just back to you, Kate.
Well, we would love to get folks to take a look as soon as you can tonight. So
Yeah, I just literally,
yeah, no, I know, it's basically a compilation of the slides that we all saw at
well,
the.
there's some other stuff, so
Yeah.
just want to take a peek.
All right, so now,
I'm sorry, so you don't want,
oh no, we do, I think
Okay.
we need to vote to close the town meeting warrant first, and then we can
okay,
discuss it.
okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
So, is there a motion to close the town meeting warrant?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 300. 11 items. Fantastic, or thereabouts.
I said I
Yes.
have a placeholder
Got it.
for number 12.
Right, exactly, sorry, what she said.
11 and a half.
11 and a half.
More or less.
Yes.
Ish.
Okay, so, so I would love it if the board would vote so that we could get this on the webpage.
I move to have the pamphlet here placed on the website for town consumption.
And available in limited print if she leaves them downstairs, things like that.
Limited print.
Limited print.
Yeah, very exclusive print job, very exclusive.
Well, I did see this at the presentation
Is
that
there
we
a
had.
second to the motion?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm
there's a
sorry,
second, yeah.
second.
Great. Is there
Thanks, Jane.
discussion?
Yes, I did see this when it was up on the screen and so on, and, but there is some things like the bottom dollar section and some
as-
other things, so
as
there's some
Kate
tweaks.
Yeah, as Katie pointed out, that's the stuff the finance committee had
Yep,
worked
that's what
on.
it said.
And they're
Yep.
gonna be,
That's what it said. I know,
Yep.
they're discussing it. They're
Yep.
discussing it at their next meeting, which I plan on going to.
great.
So, so I would like to look at it, and we can,
Well, there's a
And
motion
before
on the table, so
Right.
we'll take a vote on that. All those in favor of approving the zoning pamphlets publication on the webpage and in limited circulation?
Aye.
nay, because I want to look at it, and
Okay.
I think there's some things here that,
I vote
oh,
aye.
jeez.
If there are changes, certainly.
Too late.
Well, not necessarily, but,
Yeah.
thank
If I
you.
find any things that are wrong in here, I'm gonna send them and ask them to be corrected.
There you go, exactly. This is not the Holy Bible, so it's very close. But, it is much shorter. Okay, all in favor did that, so it's 2-1-0 for the pamphlet. All right, next item on administration, budget and policy, discussion on peer review regarding the sand gravel site at the 40R.
That the 40 hours proposed for?
So that was tricky language. It was the peer review that was done, and Alex, you asked that this be put on a future agenda, and it was, if I could just
You can table it if you wish.
The April 29th, 2022 tie and bond, New England Specialty Soils. This was a quarterly inspection, and there was some concern that the usage of that site had said, first of all, their permit is no longer, and they had said to have abandoned the site, meaning they're not doing any work there anymore. But the tie and bond report said that while they're not excavating, they appear to be stockpiling, et cetera, and so you wanted to discuss that.
Right. So I guess it goes back to our earlier discussion that I think we do need to have, if anybody has a active permit, you need to have active oversight by somebody like CEI or Tie and Bond with quarterly reports preferably. When somebody, if somebody's permit expires, and this came up in the case of others, they have a bond that's attached to this, and oftentimes we either don't have a leverage or can't do it. But honestly, I wasn't sure what this was, because there was no sand and gravel site that I think where the 40R is. I think you're probably referring to the back where the Z is.
I think it was put in there, it was confusing, but it basically is the site, let's just call it's the site near.
That sand pit, yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
so it's the
correct.
stuff in the back that people are
Correct.
referring to. Okay.
And according to them, they are not working there any longer. Now, again, this was a report that was received by the board in April. Maybe they stopped working there in June, I don't know.
Well, they referred in other hearings to trucks that they personally referred to other things. So I think we need to clarify this, and if they don't, they have restoration requirements which they haven't met. Now, they may want to waive them or do something else, but they need
So what do you see?
to come to us. I'm saying that the board needs to say, if we're going to issue a permit, and we go through these gyrations to issue a permit, one of the permit conditions is closures.
No, I understand that,
So
but
my-
do they have a current application?
No,
pending
they're
with
not
us?
looking
No.
for a permit, so.
I understand that. That means that they have not performed on their prior permit, is what I'm saying, if they haven't closed this. There's closure requirements in the
Right.
previous permit, which
know,
hasn't been met.
So we're certain that there's closure requirements in the previous permit that hasn't been met?
They're in every permit.
Yeah, I understand, but are you certain? This is on the agenda because you asked to discuss it. I totally agree with you on.
I didn't know
Yeah.
what this meant, but I understand now.
Yeah.
And so that was my question, however confusing it may have been. My question was that if somebody has a permit that they, for example, many of these permits look like they were on a different time frame. Some, but in this particular case, New England Specialty Soils or LLEC needs to fulfill their closing requirements as per the permit that they had, or come to us if they're not able to, and we can discuss.
I'm just asking, do you know, is there board activity needed on this item?
Yes.
Okay, what is
So
that
we
board
need-
activity?
We just need to say, your permit is expired.
Are we
and
certain that their permit expired?
Yes, I'm certain of that.
Did it expire during the time frame of COVID that gave people the exceptions to?
They're, based on the comments in here from Ty and Bond and and their conditions, and that's what I was looking at earlier, there are requirements that are not done. If we would like to have our building inspector, who's the zoning enforcement officer, look at this, since we don't have an earth removal
I
board.
want to act
Or
on what you'd
CEI.
like to, I want to act on what you would like done with this item on the
I
agenda.
would like to send it to either Brian or CEI or
Send
somebody
it to the
to look
person
at it for
We already
compliance.
pay rather than somebody else. So-
Well, this is usually done, the reviews are usually done at the owner's expense. I don't know if we
No, I
can
know.
do that without a permit, so.
Right, exactly. So do you have a motion?
I'll offer a motion to have Brian, the building inspector, as a zoning enforcement officer, review the expired permit for compliance.
Sorry, just,
Let's go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, you have the second.
We have a motion, yeah, so Is there a second for the purpose of discussion?
I will not be second.
I'll second for the purpose of discussion.
Is this a zoning violation? Because
I don't think so, but
That in the past, that's before we hired professionals, and since we don't have one, we don't have any other method, the building inspector would handle that, yes. And yes, it's a violation. It's not a zoning enforcement issue, it's a permit condition.
so you're just asking the building inspector to go up and talk to them about whether or not they're
No,
compliant?
just to review the permit as written. Our office can do it through CEI or somebody else, but it becomes something. But if we're going to
super
issue
confused.
a permit, and we usually have a bond or something attached to make sure that permits are complied
Sure.
with.
Is there an application for a permit to be issued? So we're not,
No.
they haven't asked us to issue a
We
permit.
have an expired permit, so based on the permit conditions that the previous board,
But they haven't filed for a permit to do earth products removal because they've indicated to the previous board that I wasn't on, that they're done doing earth product removal.
Yes, but they
So we're
have
gonna ask them to get,
subsequent meetings have
let me just
said-
finish what I'm saying. We're asking them to comply with a permit that they're not even applying for.
no, we're asking them to apply for and finish the permit requirements that they were. In every permit that we issued tonight, there is requirements.
Yeah.
So if somebody just chooses not to follow the requirements and just walk away, and then the permit expires, we don't do anything?
So what
I
you're-
mean, that's a,
So then I don't think your motion is doing what you were hoping it would do.
I am all ears about a way to do it better. I was trying to craft something that would be palatable to the board. What I am trying to do is that, I think with Jason, the way you often approach something, if we write a permit, which is essentially the guidelines or the law that somebody operates under, if they do not fulfill those, then we need to make sure that they are meaningful and enforced. In this case, we had a permit, it was not completed. They need to either complete it or seek relief.
So Ty and Bond's inspection says that it says slopes along the borders of the lower site have been graded and seeding in reclamation, with the exception of the vertical face in parcel 1413.
Correct.
Because there was a new well. Number 2, screening operations have been removed. So I think they are compliant.
I don't think so.
Have we
Based
confirmed
on,
if this is in fact?
That is in fact, yes.
yes, I don't think so, based on what the,
We should approve it.
Yes, I believe it's the same.
all the ground is supposed to be seeded.
This one I actually looked up only because it's been with you all since April when I was trying to figure it out. Ty and Bond, at least in the conversation that I had, which was about a month ago now, has said that they're removing some of the stockpiles that were not supposed to be stored on site because that's part of their closing down
Right.
process.
Which was probably.
But
the
as
trucks.
far as their regrading and seeding, that's been done. I went out to the site in July, and there are areas, I mean, it's not plush grass, but it certainly looks like we've done a good amount of reclamation work. Whether
So-
that's to the standards that was envisioned when you gave them the permit, I don't know, but.
There's supposed to be 6 inches of topsoil on all of the site, which I don't think, if they're gonna have future building.
6 or 9.
I don't think it's for the entirety of the site. I think it's for where they excavated.
Correct,
not where-
anything that's sand.
May I participate in the discussion, Steve?
Of course you can.
So just as a matter of policy, I think it's bad for this board to direct employees
Yes.
of the town administrator. So fundamentally, I would be opposed to any type of motion like this.
Yeah.
So I would propose, Alex, I want to support any concerns you have with the permit. Maybe outside of this meeting, just send an email to Kate expressing your concerns with your specifics, and we can address it at a future meeting. Look, if y'all like talking about whether the loam is how many inches, that's cool. I will never be an expert in that, and I will not be able to participate in that discussion.
Don't sell yourself short. It could be fantastic.
But I want to support my teammates, making sure that there's attention to detail. I'm just not sure now's the right time.
No, I appreciate that, and I seconded for the purpose of discussion because I wanted to try to get to the bottom of it, but I tend to agree, and it is our board policy to not direct employees that report to Kate to do any specific things, but, so, do you want to vote on your motion, withdraw your motion?
I'm happy to withdraw my motion. I was trying to offer in his role as Brian, as you said, you were reluctant to somebody that didn't work for us, so that was response to what you had said.
Your motion,
So I will withdraw the
Okay.
motion, but I would like to make sure that if we're going to issue a permit, which we did, that it is adhered to. And this
So we
is
did
not.
not issue the permit tonight.
no, there wasn't even an
We
application.
continued the public hearing
Yes,
for
for
this
that
one.
first one, not for this one.
No,
I
no,
know
no,
we
no, this
continued
was
it for this
based
one.
on the,
Yeah.
I'm trying to get clarification, because I feel like there's some, I think this might be the same thing, so why don't you let me come back?
Yeah, there we go, there we go. Motion withdrawn. Appointments and resignations. There's an appointment from the Lancaster Cultural Council, Suzanne M. Turcott, for a term to expire June 30, 2025. I don't see Suzanne on the screen. Is there a motion to appoint Suzanne Turcott? Either one of you.
I'll defer to the clerk, or I'll make a motion to appoint Suzanne M. Turcotte, term to expire January 30th, 2020. June 30th, 2025, to the Lancaster Cultural Council.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion?
And it's a wonderful committee, and I welcome people who want to serve. Did we get a letter from her or something like that? I know we're supposed to interview during the first people, but I don't know if, according to our policies, but
I know that you said that. I cannot find
Can't
that
find it.
anywhere.
I'll get it for you.
Great.
Okay, but yes, she did. It's in your packet.
Is it so?
Thank you.
Dated October 7th.
So I think it's a great committee, and they need somebody. So wonderful she can serve.
Fantastic. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 300. We thank Ms. Turcott for her willingness to serve, and we appreciate her joining the other fantastic members of the Lancaster Cultural Council. I defer to the clerk on the next item, which are licenses and permits, of which there are 3.
Okay, dokey. I was just pulling up my,
Oh, there, found them.
I offer an application, I offer a motion to approve the application of Lancaster 4-H for tree lighting, Saturday, December 3rd, 2022, from 6:30 to 9:30.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, wonderful event.
300. Next.
I would offer a motion for to approve the rental application for the use of the Town Hall Auditorium, also by Lancaster 4-H, for the Festival of Trees, December 1st, 2022 to December 4th, 2022.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next.
I offer a motion to approve the application for the town gazebo town green, also Lancaster 4-H. In this case, they're thinking ahead, Sunday, April 2nd, 2023, for the Lancaster Easter egg hunt.
Second.
From 8 to 10 a.m.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Lancaster 4-H,
Thank
for
you.
the wonderful 4 events that you
Well done.
work on.
Communications. This just in, there'll be a special town meeting held on Monday, November 14th, 2022,
We're just
7
keeping it
p.m.
there. Just a gentle reminder.
Just a gentle reminder, we have that work coming up. And also, the Select Board and Finance Committee will be doing their joint meeting for the FY24 budget review on Saturday, November 12th. And then ongoing projects and old business, there are 4 items, and they are all for you, Ms. Turner.
I sent out, but I'm not sure you get to see it, just the brief audit committee language. I know that I spoke
I
to.
looked and I couldn't find it. I know you
Was
said
it in the packet?
it's not.
It's not in my packet, but Kate did, Kate got it, but it was just very minor
Well, no, you sent it
to.
before the last meeting.
Right, right.
So it
So it
was
wasn't in this meeting.
9/26/22.
But it didn't arrive in time for the packet for the last meeting, so I thought it would be in
Well,
this
it
meeting.
was at 5:37 the night.
Right. So it was for this meeting, so I thought it'd be in the packet, but that's okay. We have it, you have it. We can deal with that. afterwards.
Hey, Alexa, quick question, just to recall, so what are you looking from the board with respect to what's provided and what we will discuss next time?
I'm hoping that when you look at that, you will agree with the charge and the membership, and if not, you will offer your suggestions to change it.
Awesome, so the intent is to form the committee?
Is to form a committee,
Yes.
Awesome, thank you.
yeah. All right. What else you got?
And that's it. The rest of those ones I will ask to table again.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm not sure this is I don't know if this was for discussion.
Not for this evening, because it wasn't on the packet. So.
Okay, because it's not, there's not a charge written here, or if there is.
Is that the second? I don't have it.
May I suggest you both?
Well, we did, we met, and I thought you were gonna use the government study committee sort of as a template.
I used the one from the state, tried to keep it really tight, and I did. I thought that had the same format as the government study meeting, but if you have changes you want to suggest, I'm happy to incorporate them.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, all right. Nothing further in your ongoing projects and old business?
Not right now.
Okay. Good.
I would move to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Kate, have we completed all our duties and responsibilities to the town of Lancaster today?
Yes, to the best of my knowledge.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Good, because I'm voting yes too. Yes, 3-0-0, the meeting is adjourned.